Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto stealth bloodline chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by TheBeardedOne and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. Some people claim that fate controls everything. There are many sayings supporting this view, sayings like you can't fight fate or fate always wins for those who look at life that way, prophecy is an echo of fate, a signpost showing what must be. Others claim that chance rules over all, that chance is constantly interfering, that a single flap of a butterfly's wing can cause a hurricane half a world away, that how a single leaf falls can change the universe, prophecy for them, a sign of what might be, depending on how it is looked at. Both claims are true, and both are false. The very nature of the multiverse explains why memories blur. It doesn't matter if one steps to the left of a stone or to the right, if one catches a ball or drops, it has almost no effect on the greater path of things. They are simply localized ripples in the river of reality, slight signs that people are switching between universes, where the only difference is where they put the car keys the previous evening. Occasionally, though, a choice is made that does affect the river of realities. An event occurs that diverts the flow, that changes the future for that particular substream of realities. This is known as a divergence. There can be many such divergences. A boy gains a scar on his forehead in accordance with a prophecy, but what if the scar took away his sight? What if the infant wandered away from the doorstep he was left on and got taken in by a woman who would come to care for him? What if an assassin returning from a mission took him and introduced him to her friends, one of whom was a god? What if he was taken in by those related to him, but managed to turn himself into a magical cat a few years later? The divergences are endless and go different routes with different endings. But then what is the divergence here? What is the event that caused the river of reality to settle into a different bed of events? The answer lies in a dark and stormy night. Well, a mid-afternoon, actually, but I always wanted to say the above. In another universe, the genin practicing the chameleon jutsu that his sensei gave him would still have noticed the young boy spying on him, copying his actions. The genin, in his anger at being watched, would have chased the boy until he was stopped by a member of the Anbu, would have been interrogated and cleared of everything except hot-headedness, a lesson he would take to heart. He would learn meditation, self-control, and would pass his first chunin exam with flying colors. And when he saw the boy again at the boy's chunin exams, he would fail to recognize him, but he would protect the boy as he left the arena after his friend, preventing a sound nin from throwing a poison kunai at him. Eventually he would make jonin, get married and have children, living out his days happily and training a new team, imbuing them with the art of self-control. But that was in another universe. Arg. Only the legs this time. Naruto looked up from the piece of food he had found at an abandoned training campsite. Although burned and then slightly dampened by the light drizzle, it was still edible, especially since he hadn't had more than a few scraps to eat in the 3 days that he had been thrown out of the orphanage on his 5th birthday. Making a decision, Naruto stuffed the rest of the food into his mouth and crawled into the underbrush, his overly large jacket that he had liberated from the orphanage's wash line after the matron had literally kicked him out during the night in just his underwear, brushing against the ground as he crept barefoot through the twigs, reaching a position where he could peer out through the narrow gap between 2 trees. He paused long enough to retie one of the strings that held his oversized trousers in place, trousers that had come from the same line as his jacket. What he saw was almost unbelievable, a boy a bit more than twice his age, with only his upper body visible. Naruto stared as the boy's legs faded back into view, then the boy began a sequence of hand seals, carefully forming each one. As he did so, Naruto watched, his wide eyes taking in every finger twitch that the older boy made. No jutsu. The boy faded from view, and Naruto gasped. Who's there? The boy flickered back into view and his hand blurred, sending a trio of shuriken slicing. Though the undergrowth, Naruto flinched and scrambled away as fast as he could. As he did so, a kunai sliced past his head, missing him by barely a finger width before bouncing off a tree and landing on the ground. Never one to pass up free tools, Naruto grabbed the kunai as he dodged round another tree. Then an idea occurred to him. Maybe if he could vanish, the boy chasing him would leave him alone. Biting on the handle of the kunai, Naruto began the hand seals, unknowingly channeling chakra and a hint of yokai as he did so. The term 1,000,000 to 1 chance is often used to describe things that happen, despite all the apparent factors that should have prevented it. When one sits down and actually calculates things, the odds are usually far greater. One small boy managing to correctly copy the hand seals for a jutsu created by a Sannin and learned by several shinobi who specialized in infiltration and STALTH 250 to 1. The boy actually being near a training field where said jutsu was being learned by a genin whose jonin sensei had left with the other 2 genin for LUNCH 25,000 to 1. The genin accidentally throwing the only chakra conductive kunai he had in his fully stocked kunai POUCH 20 to 1. The 5-year-old channeling chakra a full 2 years before he could reasonably be expected to 100 to 1. Unknowingly containing the most powerful demon in existence and utilizing its power by a CCIDENT 20 million to 1. The bolt of lightning hitting a PERSON 5000 to 1. Cancel the previous a bolt of lightning hitting a person without killing them at the exact instant that they were releasing a JUTSU 2,750,000,000 to 1. The total odds of such a sequence of events HAPPENING 687500000000000000000000000000000 to 1. Compared to that, a million to 1 chance is a dead certainty. But Uzumaki Naruto, in every single universe he existed in, was known to live without being affected by the odds. If something was considered impossible, he could generally do it. He could learn the Rasengan in a month, then complete it when the Yondaime Hokage had given up on it. He could overcome an inability to replenish his Sage Chakra by using Kage Bunshin to do it for him. And he could survive being hit by lightning. Although the interaction between the lightning, the jutsu, his healing ability, his chakra nature, wind, and the suddenly shocked awake Kyuubi inside him produced something that no one could have foreseen. The genin sat against the wall in the Hokage's office, his wide eyes staring at nothing visible to the rest of his team. Then he hear An and I tried to and he lightning gone. Hiruzen stared at the genin, then at the jonin who shrugged. I have no idea, Hokage-sama, we came back from our lunch and found him like this. I would like to ask for permission for Yamanaka and Noichi or one of his clan to use their skills to find out what happened to cause this. I agree, Hiruzen said. It may be important take him to the Yamanaka compound and report back once the situation has clarified itself. Hi, Hokage-sama. The erg would hit me. Naruto slowly sat up and rubbed at his eyes, looking round for several moments. The mental fog prevented his mind from recognizing the situation, but eventually, several important facts percolated through. He could see. But his eyes were closed. He could see. But he couldn't see his hands. He could see. But he couldn't see any part of himself. As the facts registered, Naruto inhaled sharply, then he screamed. Afterwards, Naruto would be hard-pressed to reconstruct the events of his first afternoon of invisibility. The first half hour or so passed in a panicked haze, as he ran around trying to find evidence that he actually existed. Eventually, he decided that the bruises that he had accumulated by running into trees probably counted towards him still being alive, and he sat down, just as 2 masked figures landed. So, this is where the demon brat was killed, one of them said with a satisfied tone of voice. It seems like Susanoo had the right idea yesterday. I think I'll switch to worshipping the storm god for killing the Uzumaki Gaki. Naruto froze. He didn't know who or what Susanoo was, but having the masked figures talk about him like that. The work of the fourth has been completed, said the second in a tone of deep satisfaction. He sealed the Kyuubi, turning it into a baby, and now that kid is finally dead. Naruto's eyes widened, and he felt his insides congeal. Was that why everyone hated him? Was he really the Kyuubi, the monster that had attacked Konoha 5 years ago? With a heavy heart, Naruto rose and set off towards the Hokage Tower. Maybe the old man who occasionally visited him could provide answers. As he walked, Naruto became aware that no one was glaring at him or making signs to ward off evil. In fact, no one was looking at him at all. After the third time that he had to leap out of the way of someone striding along, Naruto tucked in behind a team walking towards the tower, using them to shield himself from being knocked over by those who didn't know that he was there. Hey. Did you hear the news? The man leading the team paused, his students and Naruto coming to a stop as another ninja jogged up. What news? The Uzumaki kid's dead. He was hit by a lightning bolt and turned into vapor. He's gone, and so is that damn demon he was carrying. Naruto blinked. The demon he was carrying. But wasn't he the demon? That isn't good, the team leader said after a few seconds of thought. It means that we've lost our Jinchuriki. We're now the only one of the Great Five without a demon container. That puts us at a disadvantage. Naruto frowned. Demon container? Did that truly mean that he wasn't the Kyuubi after all? But with the Kyuubi gone forever, we are the village that destroyed not just a Biju, but the strongest Biju. The new ninja smirked. No one will dare use theirs against us in case we destroy theirs as well. The Sandaime is going to make a speech about it tomorrow morning from the roof to explain everything. Then I shall hold off on tomorrow's mission, said the team leader. Thank you, Aniki. No probs, big bro. Naruto sneaked off, sliding past the chunin guarding the entrance to the tower, running silently up the stairs. He soon reached the roof. Walking to the edge, he looked out at the sprawling town, then he sighed and moved to shelter from the afternoon sun under one of the curved panels, extending upwards from the edge of the roof terrace. Closing his eyes, he muttered a curse as he discovered once again that he could still see perfectly with his eyes closed. How was he supposed to sleep if he couldn't even block out the light? People of Konohagakure. Naruto jolted out of his light doze as Sarutobi Hiruzen's voice echoed, magnified by the seals set into the rising pillars. People of Konohagakure, the day before yesterday saw the death of Uzumaki Naruto. A huge cheer rose from the gathered crowd, and Naruto's eyes filled with tears at the proof that he was hated so much. Hiruzen frowned and motioned for silence, a silence that was a long time in coming. As I was saying, the day before yesterday saw the death of Uzumaki Naruto, and as such, it is time that you knew the truth about him. Naruto was born of the 10th of October, the day that the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konoha. As most of you know, the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, sealed the Kyuubi into the boy at the cost of his own life. That much you all know, but it is nowhere near the whole truth. Both of Naruto's parents died on the day of his birth, giving their lives to seal away the Kyuubi. His mother was Uzumaki Kushina, the red-headed habanero and Kinjutsu mistress, as well as the second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The crowd erupted in gasps, shouted questions and screamed denials, and Hiruzen again motioned for silence. The first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was Senju Mito, born Uzumaki Mito and the wife of the first Hokage, a kunoichi who bound the Kyuubi into herself. When it was being controlled by Uchiha Madara at the Valley of the End, when she was dying, she transferred her burden to her niece Kushina, who had come here from Yuzashigakure to do so. The fact that Kushina held the Kyuubi was not well known, at her request, but by holding it, she protected Konohagakure in a manner deserving of respect and admiration, for only an Uzumaki can hope to contain the Kyuubi without dying. During her time as a kunoichi, Kushina met and fell in love with another shinobi. They often fought side by side, and she eventually married him in a secret ceremony. Soon after, she became pregnant with his child. The problem that female Jinchuriki have is that when they give birth, the seal that holds the Biju weakens, meaning that it is possible for the Biju to escape to keep Konohagakure safe. Should such a thing happen, Kushina, her husband and my wife, secretly traveled to a cave for Kushina to give birth there, a cave that only they knew the location of. Or so they thought. The entire city was silent, the population barely breathing as the previously unknown story unfolded. As she was giving birth, they were attacked by an unknown person. My wife was killed trying to protect them, and the Kyuubi was ripped from Kushina, mortally wounding her in the process. The person then unleashed the Kyuubi against Konoha, a night that we all remember only too well. It was the Yondaime who saved us, but he did not do so alone. He managed to return the Kyuubi to the cave, where he and the dying Kushina worked together to seal the Kyuubi once more, this time into her son using a seal that cost him his life. Minato finished the sealing, then he and Kushina died in each other's arms from the wounds they had taken. They died, and their son, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, lived. For almost a full minute, it didn't sink in, then a wave of shouts, curses and protests rose into the air once again. Hiruzen motioned for silence, but this time, it was a long time coming. When the crowd had finally quietened down, Hiruzen spoke again. The last wish of Minato was that his son would be seen as a hero this morning. I fulfilled that wish when I engraved his name on the memorial stone in his death. He took the Kyuubi with him. He was not the Kyuubi, he was its prison and its jailer. Only a fool or a moron would believe otherwise. And with him gone, so too goes any chance of the Namikaze legacy being revived. The Namikaze mansion, hidden behind the time-space seals, can only be opened by one of Namikaze's blood, and there are none now that Naruto is gone. The Rasengan and the Hiraishin are now no more, the scrolls containing them forever concealed in the Namikaze library. I have no doubt that our enemies shall rejoice at our misfortune. I can hope only that when he died, Naruto truly took the Kyuubi with him, for if he did not, the Kyuubi shall return, for it is almost impossible to permanently kill a Biju, since they reform within 10 years of their deaths, and we no longer have an Uzumaki available to contain it for us. I hope you are proud of yourselves and of the hatred you had for the one who saved us. But that final snarled comment, accompanied by a blast of killing intent that almost caused Naruto to empty his bladder, Hiruzen stalked off, vanishing back into the tower as the other adults followed him, talking amongst themselves in low voices. Naruto stayed motionless, thinking about what he had learned. His father was the fourth Hokage. His mother had been a famous ninja. He was the reason his parents had died, and everyone thought that he was dead. Him and the Kyuubi inside him. The sun sank as Naruto thought about what he had learned. As it touched the horizon, Naruto nodded to himself. They think I'm dead, so I'm going to be a ghost. I can't be Uzumaki Naruto anymore. I'm Yurei, a spirit. I'll stay as Naruto, but now, I'm Yurei Naruto, the spirit of the maelstrom. Chapter 1. For most of Konoha, it was a bright and pleasant day. The demon Brad had died a month prior, causing quite a few celebrations, followed very soon after by several mass admissions to the hospital, as those who saw the lineage of the Jinchuriki as being more important than his burden disagreed with those who hadn't bothered to understand the difference between something that is sealed and what it is sealed in. It was probably worth noting that almost all the hospital admissions were people in the latter category, with a very large majority of them being non-ninja. Although the injuries were generally not permanently crippling, they tended to be very painful and slow to heal, often leaving scars. Oddly, most of the victims received spiraling scars on their lower abdomens, scars suspiciously similar to the seal that had once been used to restrain the Kyuubi. After the fuss had died down to a low simmer, Konoha entered a new phase with the loss of its greatest weapon. The Hokage decided to reorganize his ninja to compensate. Within 2 weeks of Naruto's apparent demise, the first non-Uchiha military police had been recruited from the Hyuga, Aburame and Inyazuka clans, while almost half of the Uchiha ninjas of chunin level and above had been reassigned to the active shinobi ranks, with a specific code of conduct being enforced regarding the use of their Sharingan within Konoha itself, although this was balanced by the payment of bounties for jutsu copied from the ninja of other nations and placed into a new archive for any ninja to learn from. This was only the first and the most obvious of the changes. Hinata tried to back up further, but the tree behind her prevented a retreat as the 3 girls loomed before her. It wasn't fair. She was only almost 6, what had she done to annoy them like that? Why couldn't they leave her alone? All she wanted was someone to be friends with, not to be hit for something that she didn't even have anything to do with. The leader of the trio, a girl named Ami, smirked as she slowly swung the stick that she was holding, a stick which she had snapped so that the end was sharp and jagged. "Why are you doing this?" Hinata begged, and Ami's face twisted into a wicked grin. "Because you are a Hyuga, so high and mighty. Well, we'll show you that you don't need to be in a clan to be strong." Hinata crouched, curling her arms to protect her face, then she heard a loud slap. "Who did that?" "I didn't see anyone, Ami." "Well, someone hit me," Ami snarled, looking round, then her gaze snapped back to her confused victim. "I bet it was you, we all know you Hyuga do weird things." Hinata shook her head, she had no idea what was going on, but… slap. Ami leapt into the air with a scream, grabbing her butt. Her 2 friends stared at her in shock. Slap. Slap. Hinata managed not to giggle as the other 2 girls suddenly reacted, grabbing at their own butts. "Hide." Hinata blinked as the young voice whispered into her ear, then she nodded and quickly slipped behind the tree that the trio had backed her against, keeping her back to the tree. Hinata wished that she had managed to activate her Byakugan so that she could see what was happening on the other side of the tree, where the 3 girls were standing back to backhand. Hinata blinked in shock. She could see them, even though the tree was between her and them. The colors had faded and she could see the glow of chakra. She had activated her Byakugan. Managing not to shout with joy, Hinata concentrated on what was happening. Her Byakugan was only letting her see about 20 meters, but it was more than enough to let her watch the bullies. Slap. Ami's head jerked round, he cheek reddening with the invisible impact, then another slap sounded, and the girl with a large hairstyle started to cry. The 3rd girl raised her hands to cover her face, only for something to grab her hair and pull, causing her to stumble to her knees. "Who's doing this?" Ami screamed, and Hinata gasped as the voice that had told her to hide spoke. "I am your and I was bullied while I lived. Now all who pick on others shall feel my pain." Ami's nerve broke and she fled, her face fixed in a rictus of fear, her 2 friends running after her, leaving liquid evidence of their prison swallowing. Hinata stepped back round the tree, her Byakugan fading as she did so. "Wayure-sama? Are you still here?" Although the voice didn't answer, Hinata could almost feel invisible eyes looking at her. Gathering her courage, she bowed deeply. My name is Hyuga Hinata, thank you for saving me." For a moment there was only silence, then the voice whispered a name. "Naruto." Hinata repeated, "Thank you Naruto-sama." "You're not scared of me?" The voice whispered and Hinata smiled. "You saved me, why should I be scared?" Hinata almost jumped as an invisible hand took her own, then she reached down with her free hand to stroke its fingers. Moving her hand, she traced a path up Yurei's arm, feeling a worn blue sleeve over his bony limb, then up to his shoulder, his neck, and finally she stopped with her hand cupping the side of his face. Although she couldn't see him, she stared into the space where his eyes would be and smiled. "Hinata-sama." Hinata jumped at the call and dropped her hands, realizing just too late that in doing so, she no longer knew where her savior was. "Hinata-sama, it is time for you to return to the clan compound. Your mother wishes for you to meet your new sister." Hinata gasped with joy. She had known that her mother was due to give birth, and now she had a sister. "Coming?" she shouted, then she looked round, realizing even as she did so that it was probably a totally pointless action. "Naruto-sama, will you come with me? Please?" For a moment, there was no response, and Hinata blinked away the tears that threatened to fill her eyes. "Alright." Hinata smiled as she felt a hand slide into her own. "She's so small," Hinata said in astonishment, gazing at her new sibling. Hitomi giggled tiredly. "She will grow, Hinata, she will grow." "Indeed she will," said another voice, and Hinata looked up to see her father smiling down at them. "I think we should tell our daughter the name of her new sister, don't you?" "Her name is Hanabi," Hitomi replied, looking down at her newest daughter. "An excellent name," Hiashi said, gently reaching out to run a finger down the cheek of his youngest child. "Hinata, come and say hello to your sister." Hinata moved forwards and smiled as Hanabi briefly opened her eyes. "Hello, Hanabi, I'm your niece and Hinata." Hinata closed the door to her room, grateful for the privacy seals in the walls. She pulled out a box of food that she had liberated from the kitchens, under the pretense of getting a bedtime snack. "Naruto-kun. Are you here?" "Yes." Hinata breathed a sigh of relief and held out the box. "Here, I brought you some food. If you want water, help yourself." As she spoke, Hinata glanced at the small jug of water on her bedside table, and she hid a smile as she saw that the level had already dropped somewhat. A moment later, the box seemed to float out of her hands and into the corner, where it sank until it was only a little above the ground, at almost the same height as it would have been had Hinata balanced it on her lap. The top lifted off and was placed on the floor, then an invisible hand picked up the first onigiri. "Itadakimasu," Ruto's voice said, and then part of the onigiri vanished. Hinata watched almost entranced as the food vanished into an invisible mouth, bite by bite. Soon, the box was empty, and it floated back into her hands. Hinata placed it on her desk and then bumped into Ruto, grabbing him to keep her balance. "Oh, sorry." "It's okay." Hinata smiled, then the thought occurred to her, where was Ruto going to sleep? There was, after all, only one bed in her room. One bed? "Ruto, what do you sleep in? Do you have pajamas?" "No, I wear my boxers." Hinata nodded and used her hand on his shoulder to lead Ruto to the bed. "You're sleeping here tonight, okay?" "Sure," Ruto shrugged. Hiruzen stared at the square of fabric that had been placed on his desk. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" Chunin Abisu adjusted his small sunglasses before replying. "Okage-sama, I was training when I stepped on this. What caught my attention was that although I could feel it, I couldn't see it. Please, examine this for yourself." Sarutobi frowned, then carefully reached for the center of the fabric. His questing fingers encountered a length of fabric-wrapped metal, and his eyebrows shot up. "Is this?" The kunai? Abisu replied. "As far as I can tell, it is a chakra-conductive kunai which somehow is invisible. I cannot explain it." Hiruzen nodded absently as he closed his eyes and extended his other senses. The way that the kunai channeled the chakra was familiar, the way that the metal was folded, so that the outer surface had none of the ripples of the more common mass-produced kunai, the tensile strength of the blade, the etching on the inside of the pommel ring. "This is a Higurashi special kunai," Hiruzen finally said, opening his eyes again to look at how his hand appeared to be empty. Even though he was gripping the handle firmly, holding out his hand, he placed the kunai in Abisu's hand. "I know that you are very well read, see if you can decode the etchings." Abisu blinked, then carefully ran his fingers round the inside of the ring. 816-3. "I have a kunai from the same batch as this one. But that means that someone has managed to create a process that turns things invisible, but lost the kunai that it was used on." Hiruzen replied soberly. "Take the kunai to Higurashi tomorrow and let him examine it. Since he made it, he may be able to work out what was done to change it." "As you command, Hokage-sama." Abisu bowed, then he vanished in a shunshin. "Hinata-sama. Are you awake?" A voice called in through the door. "You asked to be woken early today." Hinata opened her eyes and yawned with a smile, pausing as she realized that her arm was trapped under Yurei's body. "I'm awake, give me a minute," she called out, pulling gently to extract her arm without waking her savior up. Her efforts proved unnecessary when Rito sat up and yawned. "Good morning," Hinata whispered, praying that Rito would take the hint and keep quiet. Her prayers were answered when Rito hugged her and whispered, "Good morning, Hina-sama." "You can call me Hina-chan," Rito-san, Hinata whispered back, returning his hug. Then she released him and moved to her wardrobe, pulling out a towel. "Ruto," she whispered, "you need to wash too, and the bathhouse is normally deserted at this time. If you leave your clothes in the corner so you can find them afterwards, it'll be quite later and you can wash your clothes then." The rustling of fabric was her answer, and Hinata blushed at the thought that Rito was naked. "Come on," she whispered as Rito took her hand, and she shifted his grasp to her shoulder as she opened her door. Hinata shrugged off her sleeping robe and hung it on one of the hooks, trying not to blush as she stripped in front of Ruto walking to the corner washing cubicle. She filled a bowl and pulled out a stool. "Sit down and I'll wash your back." "Okay." Hinata picked up the soap and the flannel, using them to lather her hands, then she reached out cautiously and her questing fingers encountered Ruto's head. "Close your eyes." "They're always closed," Ruto retorted with amusement. "I can see through my eyelids." Hinata's eyebrows shot up as she thought about it for a moment, then shaking her head, she poured some water over Ruto and started to rub the soapy lather into his hair. Within seconds, she heard Ruto inhale sharply as her fingers caught in a knot, and she used the distribution of the suds to see where the hair was tangled, easing it loose. Soon, the hair was clean, and Hinata poured the basin of warm water over Ruto, only to pause in shock. She had expected to see a shape as the water clung to his skin, but instead the water was turning invisible too, as it flowed over him. Curious, Hinata brushed her hand across his back, and it came away wet with the invisible water slowly fading back into view. Shrugging, she lathered her hands again and started to wash Rito's back, her hands gliding over his protruding ribs as she scrubbed his back and flanks, while he used another cloth to wash his front and limbs. After a few moments, she refilled the basin and rinsed the suds off, then she gathered her courage again. Will you wash my back? The stool scraped slightly as Ruto stood up and Hinata moved forwards, only to trip over Ruto as she fell. Ruto grabbed her to try and keep her upright, but only succeeded in slowing her fall and landing across her. Hinata's blush intensified as she realized which portion of his anatomy she was feeling pressed against her stomach. Then Ruto was off her and pulling her to her feet, feeling as if her blush was causing her to overheat. Hinata turned and sat on the stool as the flannel and soap seemed to float into the air and move behind her. A moment later, Ruto poured some water over her as she had done to him, then began working the lather gently into her hair. Hinata closed her eyes and found herself leaning into his ministrations. Too soon her hair was rinsed and Hinata almost sighed before Ruto began washing her back once again. He did it the way that she had done to him and Hinata almost fainted from embarrassment as his hands rubbed against her sides. Hinata-sama. Hinata forced her eyes open and looked blankly at the soap and flannel floating in front of her before she realized what Ruto was trying to tell her. Feeling her blush extend down to her chest, she mumbled her thanks as she took the cloth and began washing herself. Hinata, can you look after Hanabi for a moment? Hitomi asked and Hinata nodded as Hitomi placed a carry basket by Hinata's side, then she glanced at the book that Hinata was holding. Reading that story again? I'm sure that Hanabi would love to listen to it as well. Yes, Kasen. Hinata smiled back, choosing not to mention that she was reading it aloud to help Ruto learn to read as he had admitted that he only understood a few of the simpler kanji, giving Ruto an apologetic glance, to which he responded by briefly tightening his one-handed hug. She turned back to the first page of the book, which had become extremely popular despite the other series that the author was famous for taking a breath. She smiled down at her sister as she started to read. The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. A novel by Jiraiya of Konohagakure, dedicated to Nagato, Yahiko and Conan of Omegakure. May peace one day be enjoyed by all. Chapter 1. The journey of 1,000 steps begins with but a single pace, but it is the most important since without it, the journey cannot be traveled. Naruto stood outside the entrance to the Ninja Academy and looked at the building before him. And so Naruto stood proud as his new sensei accepted him as part of the team. His new life as a ninja opened before him as he finished taking the first step on his new journey. Hinata finished placing the bookmark so that she would be able to find the second chapter. When she decided to continue reading it, Hinata smiled down at Hanabi, then jumped with an eep. As a small round of applause sounded. Looking round, her eyes widened as she saw over a dozen Hyuga of both the main and the branch houses had settled around her to listen, completely unnoticed by her until that point. That was excellent reading, Hinata. Hitomi smiled as she rose from where she was sitting and walked over to kneel by Hanabi's side. I think your sister really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you. Hinata smiled as she slid the book into her bag and picked it up. She really is a good reader, one of the other Hyuga women commented, and Hinata's smile widened slightly. Naruto whispered into her ear and Hinata blushed at the sincerity of his voice. Hitomi stood, holding Hanabi in her basket. Thank you, Hinata. Now, I think it's almost time for dinner. Yes, Kasen. Hinata replied, lifting her bag. I just need to put this away first. Hitomi nodded and strolled off. Hinata breathed a small sigh of relief, then Naruto whispered in her ear. I'll sneak some food from TheBeardedOne and meet you in your room. Alright, Hinata whispered back. Naruto's whimpers woke Hinata and she shifted position, cradling his head against her shoulder. After a moment, Naruto woke with a gasp. Naruto-kun, what happened? Nightmare, Naruto said quietly. Bad dreams, memories. Tell me, Hinata said, sitting up and shifting Naruto so that he was just beside her, his hand in hers as she hugged him. For a long moment, Naruto remained quiet, then he started to speak. Before we met, I had a different name, Uzumaki Naruto. Chapter 2. Eek. Hinata sighed as the scream echoed through the mansion. Turning, she watched as the most junior of the three main branch elders ran past in a panic, her face set in a rictus of fear. Hinata sighed, then smiled slightly as she felt a heartwarmingly familiar presence at her shoulder. What did she do this time? She was discussing having the seal applied to you without your father's permission, Naruto whispered into her ear, and Hinata's eyebrows shot up. So, what did you do to her, Naruto-kun? My ghost trick, Naruto giggled, and Hinata hid a smile. Almost the entire clan, apart from Hinata, of course, was convinced that a ghost was haunting the clan ever since the chief doctor was tripped up by an invisible foot and a vial of powder jumped out of his pocket and rolled to Hiyashi's foot. Hiyashi had recognized the powder as a subtle poison, and under interrogation, the doctor had admitted that he had been under orders to covertly kill Hitomi in order to weaken Hiyashi's control of the clan. Control that had been reinforced when the ambassador from Kumo had tried to break into Hinata's room and been felled by a mysterious strike to his manhood. Hiyashi had used the incident to force Kumo to admit to its plan to acquire the Byakugan, and as a result, Kumo's reputation had taken a hit while Konoha's had been boosted. The doctor had mysteriously died the next day when his caged bird seal was activated by an unknown member of the main branch. It was then that the haunting had started, and many of the Hyuga were leaning towards the theory that it was the doctor attempting posthumously to make amends by punishing those who were working against the clan, a theory made slightly more believable by the fact that they couldn't see anything, even using their Byakugan. Of course, Hinata knew differently. She was also about to search your room. Hinata froze my diary. Safe, Naruto whispered, and Hinata sagged in relief. Her diary contained drawings of Naruto, as based on her tactile explorations of his face, although when she activated her Byakugan, she was starting to be able to see him as a ripple in the air. Fortunately, no one else was able to, even Hanabi couldn't see Ruto, and he spent almost as much time around her as he did Hinata, discounting the nights when they curled up together to sleep, that was. Ruto, Hinata said quietly, what do we do when I enroll in the academy? There'll be too many people there, it'll be too crowded. We'll work something out, Naruto whispered back, and Hinata smiled again at the optimism in his voice. Anyway, we still have. Naruto's voice stopped as a door was blasted out of its frame, coming to a rest with a groaning figure amidst the wreckage. Father. Hinata screamed, running over to him as several other figures stepped through the now empty doorframe. The sound of crying attracted her attention, and Hinata glared at the elder who was holding a crying Hanabi, his hands wrapped round her throat. Hinata, you will submit to the caged bird seal for the good of the Hyuga clan, the elder ground out. Once that is done, you will begin training for your marriage and give up your silly dream of becoming a ninja. This is the will of the council. And if I don't? Hinata snarled. Then your sister dies. Hinata gasped, then her eyes narrowed as she saw a kunai slip from the pocket of the female elder, who was glaring at her. No, she lives. The floating kunai lunged forwards, stabbing into the small of the elder's back, and he screamed in agony, releasing his hostage who promptly scrambled away from him, gasping for air. The lead elder collapsed to his knees as the kunai jerked itself out, then thrust forwards, catching the second of the three elders in her side. The woman grabbed the kunai as she fell. Stay away from me. Hinata gasped. Ruto was visible due to the splashes of blood highlighting him wherever they hit beside her. Hiashi inhaled sharply. Who is that? My Byakugan can't see him. It's Ruto, he's my friend, Hinata quickly said, becoming aware even as she did so just how monumentally inadequate the explanation was. Nevertheless, Hiashi nodded slowly as he pulled himself to his feet and stepped forwards. Taharu, you have tried to undermine me for the last time. You are within range of my divination. And you within mine. Kaharu countered as both men started to strike at each other, their hands moving too fast to be seen as they struck, and countered with the skill of decades of practice. For almost a minute they fought as the other two elders lay on the ground in agony, with several branch members, including Hisashi, applying first aid and tying them up. Then Ruto dashed forwards, seeing the blood-outlined figure approaching. Kaharu half-turned to strike him. Realizing too late that in doing so he had opened himself to Hiashi's attack. An instant later, Hiashi was stood over the paralyzed elder. Ruto. Hanabi clung to the invisible boy and Hiashi's eyebrows shot up. Hinata, what is going on? Well, Hinata said slowly, twiddling her fingers and looking at the ground to avoid her father's piercing stare. When I look after Hanabi-chan, Ruto-kun helps. He often makes her toys seem to move by themselves, like he did with that vial, just after Hanabi was born. Hiashi froze, then looked over to where Naruto was using a strip of fabric torn from one of the fallen elders to wipe off the blood that had spattered him. A moment later, the blood that remained seemed to fall to the floor. What the? I can't get the blood out, I'll have to throw it away, Naruto said quietly as Hanabi raised her hands and pouted cutely. A moment later, she giggled as Naruto picked her up and held her arms wrapped round his neck. That is rather disconcerting, Hiashi admitted, staring at his youngest daughter, who seemed to be floating in the air. Hanabi's giggles increased as Naruto shifted her onto his back, then she burst out laughing as he started to run around the courtyard, making it look like she was flying. Incredible, Hiashi breathed as Hanabi seemed to slow, and Hinata snagged her, pulling her into a hug. Walking over to the bloodstains, he reached down and carefully picked up the invisible jacket. This is very worn, he mused, running his fingers across it and pausing whenever he encountered a tear hole. Not like I can get new clothes, Naruto said, the shrug somehow obvious in his voice. All of them are visible, they'll give me away. Hiashi motioned for his brother to approach. Ruto, please go with Hisashi, brother, give him sandals, trousers, a sleeveless vest, fingerless gloves and a happirai so that we can see which way he is looking, then bring him to my study. Hinata, please come with me, we need to talk. Hinata sighed and handed Hanabi to Hitomi. Humming, father. Dear, what are you planning? Hitomi asked and Hiashi smirked. A knock on the door preceded its opening, and Hiashi hid a smile as his newest guest walked in, his presence shown by the visible clothes on his invisible body. Ah, you're Naruto, or should that be Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto? Naruto's head snapped round and Hinata looked at the floor. Sorry, I couldn't he. It's alright, Naruto said, sliding his arm around Hinata and hugging her. I've watched him in action before. The Ashi raised an eyebrow at that. Indeed. Well, that is not important at this point. Hinata has told me a great deal, including where you have been sleeping. Naruto froze and Ashi turned to look out of the window. I have no choice according to the traditions of my clan, Hinata. You have been sharing a room with a male not of the clan, and even sleeping in the same bed. He has seen you naked, and you have shared a bath therefore. The tension built up as Hiashi slowly turned back, his face expressionless. I have no choice but to congratulate you on your betrothal. Hinata staggered, and only Naruto's supporting arm prevented her from collapsing as the aura of intimidation vanished. Hawaha. Hiashi smirked as Naruto tried to recover from his shock. There will be certain conditions, though you need to be examined to find out if your invisibility is a Kekai Genkai. If it is, the Hyuga will support you in starting your own clan, although Hinata will receive the sleeping bird seal, so that any children inherit your bloodline only if it isn't a bloodline. You will marry into the Hyuga clan, although no seals will be required because of how much you have already done for the clan. Either way, we will help you retrieve your clan scrolls from the vault underneath the wreckage of your father's house, and on behalf of the clan, I ask for permission to learn the Rasengan, as it may prove very advantageous to our Gyuukin. Of course, Naruto managed. Do you know how to channel chakra yet? Hiashi pressed and Naruto nodded. Yes, Hinata-chan taught me. I can't do the leaf exercise, though. Hiashi raised a quizzical eyebrow as Hinata giggled. And what happened? The first one shredded itself, the second one scrunched into a small ball. No, Ruto-kun, Hinata corrected. That was the third one, the second one was the one that caught fire. Hiashi froze for a moment, then turned to his desk and started to rummage through it, soon pulling out a trio of blank pieces of paper. These are chakra papers, they show the elemental affinities of the user, he said, handing one to Hinata and the second to Naruto. To use them, you channel a little bit of your chakra through, like this. The piece of paper Hiashi was holding seemed to darken slightly, then it crumbled to dust. As you can see, we Hyuga are earth-natured. What the? Hinata looked in shock at the soggy piece of paper in her hand. Tausen, does this mean? Suiton water-natured Hiashi breathed. Gyuukin was created to serve those with earth affinities. Your water nature means that one of the other styles will have to be retrieved from the archives, maybe Juho Naruto-san, if you would. Naruto looked down at his paper and channeled a little bit of his chakra into it. The paper seemed to fade to partial transparency, even as it split smoothly down its length, then the right piece crinkled into a ball, while the left piece caught fire and burned into ashes. 3 affinities. Hiashi gaped before pulling himself together. By Kami. But the fire, it had a blue tinge to it. Wait a minute. Hiashi quickly scribbled a note before folding it and handing it to Hinata. Take this to Akiko and have her run a full examination of you both, Hiashi said, as she is the most senior trusted clan medic. It will be very thorough and almost certainly very embarrassing, especially for you, Naruto-san, but it is necessary if we are to know if you are joining our clan or Hinata is joining yours. You may go. You asked for me to bring the report, Lord Hiashi. Hiashi looked up at the gray-haired elderly Hyuga in the doorway. He nodded and motioned for her to sit opposite him. I did, Akiko-san. How did the examinations go? Akiko sank to the floor easily. Despite her age, Hinata's examination went without a hitch. I did hers first, both to reassure Ruto-san of what was going to happen and so that she could reassure him when it was his turn. Hinata is still a virgin, if that was what you were worried about. No sign of anything happening in that area. I admit to having had some concern about that, Hiashi admitted. It is good that Naruto is so honorable. No seals, no trace of poison or anything like that, Akiko continued. She has an incredibly strong water affinity, though, and her earth affinity as Gyuukin will always be a problem for her, but I'd like to recommend Medin in training. I would be happy to oversee the start of her training in my spare time. As long as Hinata agrees, that will not be a problem, Hiashi agreed, and regarding her potential problems with Gyuukin, I have had the Juho scrolls pulled from the archives. It is a pity that we currently have no Juho practitioners to teach her, though. Akiko nodded. Overall, the only thing odd about her is that her chakra is as if something has changed it very slightly, fractionally altering how her Byakugan works. She can see Naruto with it. I cannot explain how he remains invisible to me, even when I strain my Byakugan to its limits. Interesting, Hiashi mused. Any explanation? Chakra infusion would be my best guess, Akiko shrugged, only it's more as if her chakra has changed in response to something else. I can't really explain it. Hiashi frowned. Hinata informed me that she often slept using Naruto, as if her were a plushie, hugging him. Could it have been his chakra that caused the change? It's not impossible, Akiko conceded. In fact, that would explain why her chakra is slightly paler than normal for a Hyuga. Apart from the slight lessening of visibility, I don't believe that there will be any other effects, long or short term, since it seems to have stabilized. And Naruto? Was trickier. Akiko admitted I had to ask Hinata to help collect some of the samples. I took the blood sample. It was quite enlightening to find out how much I rely on my Byakugan for things like that, but as for the rest I gave them instructions and left them to it for a few minutes. When I returned, Hinata looked like all the blood in her body had flowed into her face. And? Hiashi asked, refusing to rise to the bait. Naruto's invisibility seems to be linked to his chakra, which by the way is already above cage level, according to the chakra meter. Akiko said. The urine and feces samples started to turn visible after a few hours, not immediately, but by the time I'd finished running the analysis, I could just about see them. I've put them aside to see how long it takes before they become fully visible. Conversely, his blood is still invisible. Even after 6 hours outside his body I ran some tests and I am almost certain that it is a Kekkei Genkai. I'll need to run a few more tests to be certain, but I am fairly certain that he will pass his invisibility on to his children. Once he gets old enough to provide a viable semen sample, I'll know for certain beyond any doubt. Hiashi nodded. And the genetic comparison. First test I ran. Akiko smirked. He is, without any doubt at all, the son of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. Will he be going by his original name? Hiashi shook his head. No, he has taken the clan name Urei, and we shall honor his decision. Place him in our records as Uruto, one of the favorite of the clan. Of course, Akiko said. And now I must tell my eldest daughter that she is going to need to receive the sleeping bird seal, Hiashi said as he rose to his feet. On the other hand, a clan of allies invisible even to the Byakugan. And almost certainly the Sharingan, Akiko interjected. And the Sharingan, Hiashi acknowledged with a nod, would be an incredible advantage in the future. It could even rival the famed Akamichi Nari Yamaneko alliance. Clothing could be an issue, though Akiko noted being naked on a battlefield isn't my idea of a good thing. Hiashi froze. I hadn't considered that. It certainly puts a new spin on the phrase full frontal assault. Any ideas? Takra cloth, maybe. Akiko mused. Of course, it'll have to be fully reactive, which would be expensive. Perhaps he should get a fundashi made from it to start with, then he can simply shed the clothes he can't turn invisible, while keeping his bits tucked away. As he earns more money from missions, he can get new items made for himself. Excellent, Hiashi said, then paused as Akiko lifted her hand. The problem we do have, though, is his Bunshin. If he manages to learn a normal Bunshin, which alone will be incredibly difficult because of his chakra reserves, it'll be invisible, thus useless. We cannot teach him an earth clone because of his affinities, and no one in the clan knows the smoke clone or the lightning clone. I don't know if there is even such a thing as a wind clone. I suggest, therefore. But he is taught the cage Bunshin. As soon as you feel he can handle it, it'll also increase his combat potential immensely. Hiashi paled as he thought it through. Kami invisibility, cage level reserves, and the cage Bunshin. He could do more damage in battle than his father ever did. It would give your daughters a legion of invisible guardians, though, Akiko pointed out with a slight upwards twitch of her lips. Hiashi froze for a moment, then nodded. True, and that thought is rather reassuring, in a blood-freezingly terrifying sort of way. Wow, Hinata and Naruto breathed in unison, looking round the main room of the small cottage tucked into the corner of a small courtyard, which was visible out of the front window and door. The corner of the room contained a small kitchen, while a bedroom with a double bed was visible through a door with a bathroom just beyond it. Until such time as you choose to move into your own compound, this shall be your home, Hiashi said as Hanabi laughingly erupted out of the bedroom, where she had been bouncing on the bed, and scurried over to come to a stop in front of Naruto, and Naruto picked her up, and Hinata moved close to support her on the other side. Although you are good with children, Hitomi laughed from behind them, I would quite appreciate not becoming a grandmother until you have both reached the rank of chunin at least, preferably jonin. Speaking of which, Hinata, we need to have the talk at some point. Hinata turned bright red at that. Mother. I will leave you now as I have an appointment I must prepare for, Hiashi said as he turned to the door. Naruto, please safeguard my daughter. Sir, I would die before letting her get hurt, Naruto said as firmly as he could, and Hiashi nodded, showing his respect for Naruto's claim. I know. Hyuga-san. Lord Hokage, Hiashi replied as he entered the office. Your message said that you had something of great importance to deal with. Hiashi nodded and briefly activated his Byakugan. I do, if you could ask your 4 Anbu to leave. 4. Hiruzen interrupted, I only have. Where are they? Ceiling, sofa, bookcase and hat stand, Hiashi said slowly, then he ducked as a triple barrage of kunai converged on the last location. The hat stand seemed to ripple, and a black-clad figure with a plain white mask leapt towards the window, only for Hiashi to deliver a pair of Jyoken strikes to its legs, even as Hiruzen unsealed a bow staff and lunged forwards with a strike that shattered the figure's left shoulder and pinned it against the wall. Take him to Ibiki. Hiruzen ground out, and the 3 true Anbu appeared, grabbed the rogue ninja and vanished in a shunshin. Anyone else? Hiashi reactivated his Byakugan and looked around. The closest person to us is your secretary, Lord Hokage. If you could please activate your privacy jutsu. Hiruzen nodded slowly, then his hand reached out to touch a small seal set into his desk, the walls seemed to flash as the Fuinjutsu activated. So, Hiashi, what is so important? Only that I have located the son of the Yondaime, Hiashi smirked, enjoying the gobsmacked expression on Hiruzen's face, and I wish for him to enter the academy as a ward of the Hyuga. Chapter 3. It was the final two figures who filed into the classroom that caught Iruka's attention. One of them was pale-skinned and dark-haired, looked round nervously, and yet he could catch a glimpse of the steel that was underneath the silken glove the other. He didn't even know what gender it was. It almost hovered by the shoulder of the first one, who was obviously a Hyuga, based on her eyes, but not a single square inch of skin, showed it wore dark grey loose trousers with solid boots, as opposed to the normal ninja sandals, while its upper half was concealed by a pale thigh-length hooded jacket, a dark high-neck top underneath, a white mask without any discernible features, and black gauntlets covering its hands. Not an inch of skin or a single strand of hair was revealed by the loose flowing clothes. The mismatched duo walked to adjoining chairs with the cloaked figure continuing to hover at her shoulder, then it saw her properly seated before it took its own place between her and the rest of the room. During this, the others in the room had gone silent, watching with wide eyes. All right, Iruka managed as he accepted the student list from Mizuki. My name is Yumino Iruka, this is Mizuki, my assistant instructor. When I call your name, stand up and introduce yourself to your classmates Mizuki, and I will go first to show you how it is done. My name is Yumino Iruka, I like studying and teaching. I dislike those who abandon things before they are completed, and my dream for the future is to get you all to be the best ninja that you can be. I am Mizuki, as Iruka said. Mizuki grinned, sweeping his silver hair back. My likes are practicing with my Fuuma Shuriken and learning new tricks. My dislikes are those who don't pay attention, and my dream for the future is to become a jonin and get to lead a team of my own. Now that you know how it is done, we can begin properly, Iruka said, glancing at the list. Abiram. In one corner, a figure almost as well wrapped as the one sitting next to Hyuga girl stood up, adjusting his sunglasses. My name is Abiram Shino. My likes are collecting and breeding bugs. My dislikes are those who kill bugs. My dream is to prove myself able to lead my clan. Iruka nodded as Shino sat down. Akimichi. Several of the students had to hide their sniggers as the fat boy stood up, since the bandana he was wearing made it look like he was wearing a pair of underpants on his head. I am Akimichi Choji. My likes are my friend Shikamaru and my food. My dislikes are those who call me fat. I'm just big boned, and my dream for the future is to master all my clan's jutsu. I'm really nervous, Hinata whispered, and Naruto looked at her through his mask, which had been carefully made with special seals that caused it to be transparent from the inside, just like the masks used by the Anbu. You'll do fine, he whispered, giving her a brief one-armed hug. Hinata buried her face in the junction of his shoulder and neck, then sighed as they heard her clan name knock them dead, Hinata Haim. Hinata nodded and stood up, taking a deep breath. I am honored to meet you all. My name is Hyuga Hinata. I like flower pressing and Rudokun. I dislike those who hate for no reason, and I hope to become a good kunoichi. Blushing, Hinata sat down, her hand almost subconsciously finding Naruto's as the next name was called, and a feral-looking boy stood up. You were brilliant, Naruto whispered, and Hinata nodded, looking down at the desk. Thank you. Hey, Naruto whispered, his voice bubbling with laughter. Why the stutter? You've been kicking me around the training field for the last few weeks, remember? Hinata's blush intensified, but she pulled her head back up, sitting proud as a blonde girl stood up. My name is Yamanaka Ino. I like flowers and gossip. I hate those who make fun of my name, and my dream is to become a kunoichi. Ino sat down and everyone's attention turned to the last student on the list. Iruka read and Naruto rose, minimizing his movements so as to look as mysterious as possible beside him. Hinata tried not to smile at his dramatizing. My name is Naruto, Naruto proclaimed in a voice that showed even less emotion than Shino. I live for the one who returned me to life, Hyuga Hinata. I will destroy any who try to harm her or her loved ones. Only she of all here may gaze upon my uncovered form, hence my robes. My dream is to be worthy of her. Naruto sat back down, grinning at the intense silence that had settled on the entire classroom. Then Mizuki spoke nervously. Returned him too. When I found him, he had no one. Hinata shrugged as she reminisced. I just helped him to find something to live for. He seems quite devoted, Iruka managed, and Hinata turned slightly to give Naruto a soft smile. I saw him take down 2 of the elders to save me and my sister. Iruka and Mizuki both stared in shock at the cloaked boy to even survive against one Hyuga elder, a position which demanded the rank of at least special jonin, was no easy feat to not only face off against, but to take down 2 was regarded as something that only the Hokage in his prime could have achieved. Ask my father if you want, Hinata added with a wide smile. How do you eat like that? Hinata and Naruto exchanged glances even as Naruto used the low-level genjutsu he'd learned from several Hyuga Anbu to make it seem as if his mask was still in place. As he quickly lifted it up and took another bite of food, Ino growled as she stalked towards the bench the pair were sitting on. "You just ate that straight through the mask. How?" Hinata giggled as Naruto took another bite, making it look like the chopsticks had passed their burden straight through the mask, then a small twitch caused the mask to drop back down as Ino reached out. "That mask is solid." She half-shrieked, her fingers stroking and tapping the mask as she tried to find out the secret behind it. "How do you do that?" "Practice," Naruto deadpanned, earning a fuming glare from the blonde girl. "And what sort of ninja are you?" Ino continued. "Stealth and assassination," Naruto said, preparing to move, and Ino snorted. "Yeah, as if you could do that in those. Hey, where'd you go?" Hinata sighed as a pile of fabric pressed against the back of her feet. Naruto had trained almost solidly for weeks to reach the point that he could disrobe in less than 2 seconds and fully reclothe himself within 7. "Where I see up." Ino spun round, one hand clamped over where Naruto had smacked her lightly, then an invisible hand flipped her ponytail over her head. Ino spun around again, trying to find her unseen assailant, only to collapse onto all fours as Naruto poked her knees from behind, then he spanked her again as she fell. As she struggled to stand up, Naruto returned to his place by Hinata's side, fully cloaked once again. "How did you?" Ino managed, and Naruto lowered his head to take another bite of food. "Troublesome," a voice said from one side and Naruto half turned to see a pineapple-haired boy and his larger friend staring at them. "I couldn't follow you, but I know that it wasn't a simple case of speed." "Shut it, Shika." Ino almost howled, stalking over to the reclining boy. "Shut up and tell me how he did that." Shikamaru stared at her for a long moment. "Well? Which should I do? Shut up or tell you?" Ino fumed as several of the others laughed at her, then she stormed off. "Troublesome girl," Shikamaru sighed, his eyes carefully watching and evaluating the cloaked boy from under heavy eyelids. "Hello, Hanabi." Hinata smiled as her younger sister ran up to her. "Did you have a good time?" "Yep." Hanabi laughed, then she turned to Naruto. "Flying?" "If me am I new." Naruto laughed, and Hinata shook her head as she held out her arms. "I'll take them to our room." She laughingly sighed as Naruto quickly shed his visible clothing, pausing just long enough to kiss Hinata on her cheek, thus making her blush furiously. Naruto took Hanabi's hands and swung her onto his back, leaning forwards to make it seem to anyone watching that she was hovering horizontally, her arms stretched out in front of her with the fabric crinkling at the wrists, being the only thing showing where Naruto was holding her. 10 minutes, then we have some homework and training to do. Hinata smiled. "I know, Hinata." Naruto laughed. "You ready, Hanabi-chan?" "Yep, flying." Hanabi chirped, then she started squealing with joy and Naruto bounded forwards, carrying her along the path at high speed. "Faster. Faster. Wahoo." "That is still rather disconcerting," Hiashi said from behind her, and Hinata had to fumble frantically to avoid dropping the clothes she was holding. "How is it that only you can see him with your Byakugan? He is still invisible to the rest of us." "I don't know," Hinata replied, trying to reseat the bundle of fabric. "How well can you see him?" Hiashi inquired as he paced by Hinata's side. "I can see him almost like he's a glass figure," Hinata admitted with a slight shrug. "I still can't make out all of his features, but I can tell where he is as long as he's moving slightly when he holds still. I still find it very hard to find him if I don't know where he is." "Why-yahoo!" Hanabi cried as she zoomed past them. "Faster. Faster, Nai-san." For a moment, the two Hyugas stared at the young girl as she vanished round the corner, then Hinata giggled. Hiashi looked down at her, then shook his head, a small smile playing on his own lips. "May I assume that you will both be coming to join me for dinner?" "We would be honored to," Hinata quickly replied. "Excellent," Hiashi said as they reached a split in the path. "Then I will send a branch member to summon you. Since there is some business to discuss, I would suggest semi-formal." "Yes, Tausen." Hiashi fought down a sigh as his guest entered through the main gate. The man was almost the complete antithesis of the Hyuga, where the Hyuga were restrained. He was exuberant, where the Hyuga were known for their emotional control. He was almost hyper-emotional, where the Hyuga wore dignified robes and clothing of the finest fabrics. He wore bright green spandex. The only things that he and the Hyuga had in common were their almost fanatical loyalty to Konoha. Their renowned skills in Taijutsu and the color of their hair, although no Hyuga would ever be seen with that hairstyle. "Mido-san, I thank you for coming." "It was no problem," Hyuga Dono Guy grinned, and Hiashi almost blinked as Guy's teeth glinted. "May I ask why you called upon my expertise?" "You may," Hiashi admitted, motioning for the Taijutsu specialist to walk beside him, "but before we do so, I must ask that everything you see or learn here be held in confidence from those who do not already know." "I understand, Hyuga Dono, and I will keep all your secrets safe," Guy declaimed, causing a few of the other Hyuga traversing the courtyard to stare at him before hurrying on their way. "Excellent," Hiashi replied, fighting down the urge to facepalm at Guy's enthusiasm. "I have need of your skills as Konoha's premier Taijutsu specialist." Ah, the Gyuukin guy said, suddenly turning serious. Although I admit that it is indeed a truly formidable style, it does have quite a few weaknesses in the field. The Ashi almost froze for a moment. The Gyuukin was the result of several centuries of development and adaptation to maximize the use of the Byakugan in close quarters combat. What possible weaknesses could it have? The Gyuukin is rather weak against ranged attacks, an elemental jutsu guy said, just loud enough for Hiashi to hear him. Although the base stance is solid, it does not aid greatly in evasion maneuvers as opposed to blocking or countering, while the high level of reliance on the Byakugan means that a technique as simple as a chakra flare would seriously degrade its efficiency. The Ashi's eyes widened. A chakra flare? Such a technique was completely useless. Except against those with a dojutsu. Such a simple technique, it was a miracle that such a move hadn't been used against them yet. I see that there is far more I need to talk to you about than I thought, Hiashi admitted, causing Guy to look at him curiously. The original reason I asked for your aid is because the Hyuga will eventually be sponsoring the formation of a new clan, which is a Kekai Genkai that renders both the Byakugan and the Sharingan almost useless. My daughter's fiancé needs to be trained in two forms of Taijutsu, one for when he is cloaked and one for when he is relying on his blood limit. And what would this Kekai Genkai of his be, Hyuga Dono? You will see for yourself in a moment, Hiashi said with a slight upwards twitch of his lips. As they came to a stop outside the dining hall, the door slid open and Guy followed Hiashi in, only to freeze at the sight before him. What in Kami's name? Yonen Mito Guy, allow me to introduce you to Naruto, currently the only known wielder of the Totem blood limit. I stared at Naruto, who waved back at him, an action only visible due to the half gloves he was wearing. After several minutes, he inhaled sharply and shook his head. Lord Hiashi, this has to be the most potentially terrifying Kekai Genkai that I have ever encountered. Why do you think the Hyuga clan has promised to sign an eternal pact with the Urei clan once it is established? Hiashi shot back. Guy stared at him, then back at Naruto. May I? Hiashi nodded and Guy walked over to Naruto. Please, stand and stretch your arms out. Naruto turned his head to face Hinata, who simply shrugged, then he rose to his feet. Guy carefully ran his hands along Naruto's arms, then crouched and examined his legs. Standing up again, he carefully felt Naruto's neck, then held out a hand. Make a fist and push against my hand as hard as you can, right first, then left. With another shrug, Naruto followed the instructions, then Guy stepped back and looked him up and down. I will need to spar against him briefly to get a true feel for the style best suited for him, Guy said to Hiashi, but I think I have several ideas. I assume that he will go fully covered under normal circumstances, so for when he is cloaked, I would recommend the style the Gyuukin is derived from. The Guazhang. Hiashi nodded. Yes, we have the scrolls for that style in our archives, several of its katas are almost identical to the basic Gyuukin katas, we can teach that. In fact, if I am not mistaken, I think he is already training in it and for when he has shed his clothing. Shinjuquin would be the most logical choice, Guy mused, ignoring Hinata's embarrassed blush, since he would have no trouble moving close, the linear attacks it is based around would be highly effective. I do not know that style and I do not know of anyone in the clan who does, Hiashi unwillingly admitted. Are you willing to teach it? Of course. Guy smiled, taking a thumbs up pose. I would be honored to have this most youthful boy as my student. He is attending the academy, Hiashi noted, and Guy nodded. I understand. When it is time for his lessons, should I pick him up from the academy? Hiashi paused, then he slowly nodded. If you are willing to escort my daughter and nephew at the same time, yes. Of course. Guy grinned as Hiashi moved to the end of the table and sat down. I would be honored to. Mito Guy seems very enthusiastic, Naruto said as he poured the water over Hinata's head and started to apply the shampoo. Hinata sighed in pleasure at the feel of his fingers massaging her scalp, separating each strand of hair as they did so. He is a renowned jonin, she replied after a moment. He is known as the Taijutsu expert of Konoha, to the point that he rarely uses ninjutsu, kinjutsu or any other discipline. The true specialist, Naruto realized, and the rival he mentioned. Hada Kakashi. Hinata said, the copycat ninja who knows over 1,000 jutsu. He studied under your father. I'll have to meet him at some point, Naruto mused as he poured more water over Hinata's head to wash out the soapy suds. Picking up the soap, he lathered his hands and began rubbing her back and shoulders. I wonder if he would be willing to teach us. Us? Hinata asked, activating her Byakugan and half turning to look at him. Naruto smiled back at her. Hinata-chan, do you really think I would leave you behind? Ignoring her unclad state, Hinata spun round and grabbed Naruto, hugging him tightly and burying her face into the crook of his neck. For a moment, neither moved, then Naruto gently pushed Hinata back onto the small stool and resumed washing her back. So Hinata managed after a short while. What do you think about our classmates? Most of them are alright, Naruto admitted. The other girls are rather loud and they seem overly worshipful of Sasuke. Hinata shrugged, I think he's just sulking about how his older brother keeps outdoing him. At least he smiles enough that he isn't a total emo. Naruto admitted as he washed away the suds. My turn. Hinata rose and let Naruto sit down as she refilled the bucket. I would say close your eyes, but you always have them closed anyway, she joked, and Naruto laughed. True, my Heim in fact glubberlurg. You may want to keep your mouth closed when I do that, Hinata giggled, putting down the empty bucket and picking up the bottle of shampoo. Now, hold still. Chapter 4. I shall train harder to beat you, my eternal rival. Mido Guy paused as the voice sounded, then he turned to find a wide-eyed youth standing there, a black-haired boy clad in black shinobi trousers, a dark brown wraparound shirt and sandals. As he turned, his long ponytail briefly came into view. Ignore him, Niji sighed, walking past behind his cousin. He's not important. I am Rock Lee. The boy shouted, remember the name, for I shall prove myself to be a true ninja using only taijutsu. I blinked, then walked over to the boy. An interesting goal, but why only taijutsu? Lee seemed to shrink as he looked at the ground. I cannot channel chakra to perform jutsus, so ninjutsu and jinjutsu is forever denied to me, but I shall never give up. I grinned, an admirable attitude, your flames of youth burn brightly. I am Mido Guy, Konoha's green beast and the premier taijutsu master of Konohagakure. Lee looked as if Kami had granted him his fondest wish. Well, will you train me? You will need to train hard and constantly, Guy warned, then his smile widened, but with your attitude and physique, I believe that you may be suitable to learn the Goken. A strong fist, Lee breathed. Yosh. I shall train constantly to prove myself worthy. Then meet me here after the academy finishes tomorrow and I shall start your instruction. Guy grinned, a grin that was matched by Lee, even as Niji sighed. May I suggest Kenjutsu as well? Hinata said quietly, causing all the males to look at her. Just focusing on taijutsu will limit his range, like Jyoken does to the Hyuga. Even with your input, Guy-sensei, adding a sword will increase his range, and if he combines it with taijutsu. I frowned and thought, then nodded slowly, an excellent suggestion, Hinata-san. I know a couple of excellent Kenjutsu specialists who may be willing to teach. I will approach them about this. Naruto-san, I must speak with your guardian. I believe that Lee-san may become a good sparring partner for you. Then I shall train until we meet tomorrow. Lee shouted before running off. Yosh. For a moment, Hinata, Niji and Naruto stood stock still, then Naruto broke the silence. What just happened? How was the academy today? Naruhina queried as his son slouched through the door. Troublesome, Shikamaru grumbled. That Yurei boy, I can't understand him. He's hiding a lot and I haven't figured it out yet. It's been 6 months, I managed to figure everyone else out within one, but Ruto. Oh? Shikaku asked even as he waved for his son to sit on the other side of the shogi board. I overheard a rumor that he has an unusual Kekai Genkai. Do you know what it is? Shikamaru paused with his hand hovering over one of the shogi tiles. He really does have a blood limit. That is interesting. I wonder what it could be. A Dojutsu, maybe? Shikaku suggested as he moved one of his pawns forwards to clear the way for his bishop. Shikamaru shook his head. From the little bits of information I have managed to obtain, I think it's more a body type. He can vanish without trace and reappear, but it isn't speed. He doesn't displace enough dust for that, and Ino's clothes didn't get caught in a wave of displaced air the first time he did it to her. The jutsu? Again Shikamaru indicated his disagreement even as he moved a pawn forwards. I have heard of invisibility jutsus, but to use one in the first year of the academy. And with the level of perfection that the incident indicated. Very unlikely. Shikaku moved one of his gold generals, then looked at his son. So, do you have a theory? Yes, but it's hard to believe, Shikamaru said, moving another pawn forwards. The only thing that fits all the observed facts, and which explain his robes and mask, is natural invisibility. Yet I have never heard of a clan with that Kekai Genkai, and if it existed, it would be renowned and feared by all. You said that he was of the Urei clan. Naruto, although I've heard him being called Naruto a time or two by Hyuga Hinata when they thought they were alone together, Shikamaru confirmed, concentrating on the board and thus missing the expression of shock on his father's face. He seems very attached to Hyuga Hinata, acts like her bodyguard. Are you certain of that name? Shikaku demanded and Shikamaru froze, then looked up in confusion. Yes, Naruto. Why? Naruto, Shikaku whispered to himself. Could it possibly be as the Yondame's son still? Father? Shikaku shook his head and refocused on the board. Just thinking to myself. Shikamaru gave him a questioning look, then looked down at the shogi board. Troublesome. Pardon? You heard me, Shikamaru said. You are possibly the brightest student I know here and I could use your help. On what? Haruno Sakura asked, folding her arms over her chest. Naruto, Shikamaru stated. What do we know about him? He's creepy, totally devoted to Hinata, has tons of stamina. And then Sakura paused, her face reflecting her confusion. That's it. We don't know anything at all about him. My father says he has a Kekai Genkai and may be related to the Yondame, Shikamaru provided, and Sakura blinked. But the Yondame was an orphan who, damn it, I know this, aha. Who married Uzumaki Kushina and they had a son, Uzumaki Naruto. What was that name again? Shikamaru snapped and Sakura blinked at his sudden intensity. Uzumaki Naruto wait, does that mean? Naruto is a popular name, but only for the younger children, not those our age. It is not impossible, Shikamaru mused, they are about the same age, and Naruto only appeared just before he entered the academy, but why would he be totally concealed? No one would have known who he was unless he truly resembled one of his parents, and even then, a pair of sunglasses and a bandana would more than suffice. Unless something happened to him, Shikamaru finished slowly. I didn't pay attention to the report. He was hit by lightning while spying on a genin. Sakura supplied the bolt totally vaporized him, no remains were ever found. There must be more than that to the story, Shikamaru fumed. Wait, spying on a genin, what was the genin doing? I don't know why. It could be important, Shikamaru said, then he sighed. Full body burns from a lightning bolt, that would explain the need for all concealing clothing, it would also explain the length of time he was missing for, he would have needed to heal, and the Hyuga clan were known to be supporters of the Yondaime. Hinata was probably one of those who helped him to recover, that's why he said she was his reason to live and why they seem so attached to each other. She was probably his primary carer. Not certain about his Kekai Genkai, though perhaps it lets him turn invisible for short periods of time. Which would explain how he humiliated Ino the first time he showed off. Sakura finished. He activated his invisibility and used it to keep flipping her hair and spanking her before returning to Hinata's side. It makes sense, Shikamaru nodded. Of course, we can't tell anyone other than the Hokage about this. If Iwa finds out that the son of their greatest enemy is still alive. Kumo tried to kidnap his mother, they'd be a threat as well, Sakura added. I agree, let's keep this quiet. We need to confirm our theory with the Hokage. Shikamaru decided. I'll persuade father to get us an audience with him, even though it will probably be quite troublesome. That is quite a theory, Hiruzen said after Shikamaru and Sakura finished explaining their theory. From where you started and with the information you possessed, it is quite incredible how accurate your conclusions are. Shikamaru nodded in satisfaction and glanced at the other two adults in the room. His father was looking proud, while the other man, Hyuga Hiashi, was frowning slightly. You realize that all of this is classified as an S-rank secret? Hiruzen added and Sakura nodded almost frantically. That's why Shikamaru and I agreed that we'd only discuss it with you, Hokage Dono. And have you told your mother? No, Lord Hokage, Sakura said quickly. She hated Naruto, she claimed that he was a demon, she still has the spiral scar. Hiruzen blinked a couple of times at that, then his eyes widened in recognition. Ah, I see. So if she found out that Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto was still alive, then she'd try to kill him, Sakura finished, or have him killed, especially since she lost out to Uzumaki Kushina. Hiruzen blinked again and Sakura sighed. My mother had a major crush on the Yondaime when she was younger, but she failed to get him for herself, she still holds the grudge. I see. Hiruzen finally managed. As it happens, I already knew all of this, but I am very impressed that you two managed to work out as much as you have done. Am I correct in assuming that we should not change our actions towards Ruto and Hinata? Shikamaru asked and Hiruzen nodded. Immediately, yes. Should you wish to befriend them, do it slowly so that no one suspects anything other than normal growing up. Sure, Shikamaru shrugged. Not that it really matters to me, I'm not going to be on their team, after all. Oh? Shikaku asked and Shikamaru smirked. 8 clan heirs and the daughter of a council member in one class. I'll be teamed up with Ino and Choji due to family tradition, and the alliance between our clans Hinata and Ruto are currently claiming the top 2 spots, so I bet they'll be teamed up with Kiba, since he's lagging behind so much, he really hates the written portions, and that leaves. Yes. Sakura yelled before blushing. Sorry. Yes, Sakura will probably be teamed up with Sasuke and Shino. Shikamaru finished. Sakura, Sasuke hates fangirls, it's something his brother taught him. Sakura froze. You really should train more, although you do have another 3 years to improve, Shikamaru added. Historically, the Uchiha prefer strong women according to Ino, Itachi is dating Inuzuka Hana. I thought gossip was too troublesome for you, Sakura teased and Shikamaru sighed. Due to the links between our clans and the fact that our fathers were on the same genin team, I have to put up with that troublesome blonde at least once a week, it's a real drag. Shikaku snorted with hastily concealed humor as Shikamaru gave him a flat look. Your ability to uncover secrets has been noted, and now that you do know, your ability to keep secrets will be tested. That goes for you in particular, Sakura. You must not tell your mother about this, she does not need to know, Hiruzen said. You are dismissed. Shikaku led the 2 youngsters out of the office, and Hiruzen and Hiashi exchanged glances after they were gone. Lightning burns, Hiashi finally said. That boy certainly has some interesting views. But he unknowingly created a very good cover story. Hiruzen shot back one which you may wish to use. Hiashi nodded. I agree, I will have Naruto and my daughters learn their new cover story once I return to the compound. Of course, Hiruzen nodded, giving Hiashi tacit permission to depart. As Hiashi exited the tower, his attention was drawn to the slouching figure waiting for him. Shikaku. The Nara patriarch nodded back, straightening slightly and moving to Hiashi's side. Is there a problem? Shikaku shook his head slightly, no, has Ruto claimed his inheritance? We have the scrolls in the archives, and Ruto is already working on his basic Fuinjutsu, Hiashi replied, briefly activating his Byakugan to ensure that they weren't being overheard. And his invisibility is indeed a Kekai Genkai. We were able to confirm it recently beyond any doubt, Hiashi said, carefully not letting Shikaku see his expression. It is indeed a Kekai Genkai, and his children will inherit it. To confirm it like that means that you must have taken a sample from Shikaku started, then he stopped talking and coughed. Ah yes, I see, may I ask if he is starting a new branch of the Hyuga clan? No, Hiashi said, inwardly thankful for the conversational save. It is our hope that he can become the founder of a new clan. You will need help for that, Shikaku mused, since he will be the only member. That takes 7 other clans to support the process. He is engaged to Hinata, Hiashi interjected, and Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Then since he is to be married to a clan member who has agreed to leave her clan, that cuts it down to needing the support of 4 clans due to who his father was. You may count on my support when the time comes. And with your support comes that of Choza and Inoichi. Hiashi nodded. Thank you. However, Shikaku said, causing Hiashi to glance at him, we will need to start laying the groundwork so that it seems like a natural extension of the alliance between our clans. As such, may I suggest that Hinata and Ruto visit occasionally, maybe in your company, as you seek closer relations with other clans for the good of Konoha, maybe. A valid reason for doing so, Hiashi said after several thoughtful moments, although we both know that it is unlikely that Hinata and Ruto will be on the same team as your son. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't learn at least a few things about each other. Shikaku shrugged. After all, they will probably have to work alongside each other in the future. By the way. Hiashi glanced at Shikaku. About Ruto, did he really suffer full body burns, or is there another reason he is cloaked? Just so I don't accidentally do something wrong, you understand. Hiashi paused for a moment. Well, it relates to his blood limit. Inoichi stared at his lazy teammate in shock. What? You heard me, Shikaku yawned. Hiashi will be bringing his daughters and his ward Ruto over to the next gathering at the Nara compound. He knows how informal we are, right? Chaoza asked before taking a bite out of the onigiri in his hand. He knows, Shikaku sighed. And he's okay with this? He is, Shikaku muttered. Then why? Inoichi demanded, completely perplexed. Hiashi and I are setting a long-term play into motion, no matter how troublesome it is, Shikaku said, it will let us repay a debt we owe. A debt? I don't recall us owing the Hyuga a debt. Inoichi mused and Shikaku took a sip of his sake before answering. We don't, but it'll let us repay the debt we owe to someone who died for Konoha. I'd tell you more, but I need Hiashi and Hiruzen to give me permission. And asking would be troublesome, Chaoza chortled before reverting to a more serious outlook. You wouldn't be doing this without a proper reason, so alright, but I expect to find out what it is about at some point. Inoichi nodded in agreement and Shikaku sighed. Alright, I'll make sure you get enough warning. Oh, Hiashi's ward has a medical condition that means he needs to remain cloaked. Inoichi's eyes suddenly widened and, making sure that Chaoza didn't see what he was doing, he held up 4 fingers. Shikaku nodded and Inoichi whistled. Whoa. Chaoza looked at them both suspiciously. Alright, what did I miss? Having a daughter aiming for the title of Gossip Queen of Konoha. Inoichi shot back. I may not be up to Shikaku's level of intelligence, but I know how to put a few facts together myself. Chaoza looked at them both suspiciously and Inoichi sighed. Alright, let's head to the tower and get you into the secret. To you coming, Shika? A snore was his answer and Inoichi sighed. Lazy bum. Ino stared in shock at her father for a long moment, then her mind seemed to restart. Ruto's coming to the next clan party. Why? He's creepy. Inoichi sighed. He will be coming with Hiashi-sama, Hitomi-san, Hinata, Hanabi and Niji. Hinata's coming. Ino chirped. She's okay, she isn't competition. For what? Inoichi asked before he could stop himself and Ino rolled her eyes. For Sasu-kun, of course. Ino sighed, obviously irritated at the incredible denseness of her father. I mean, sure, she likes Ruto, which is kind of freaky, but at least she isn't after the hunk of the class. Inoichi held back a sigh as his daughter continued to wax lyrical about the many real and imagined attributes of the Uchiha boy. Part of him wondered if he could get Ino romantically interested in Choji instead. The boy was one of the nicest people he knew, after all. And that's why he's the best. Ino finished triumphantly and Inoichi dragged his attention back to the conversation. That's nice, Ino, he murmured, making another note to go over the signs of irrational obsession with her. Again. So you've invited Ruto. You're playing a long game, Shikamaru commented as he moved one of his lances on the board before him. The payoff will be worth it, Shikaku replied, placing a piece to counter the incipient assault his son had planned. Shikamaru grunted in irritation at having his ploy foiled so quickly. So Shikaku continued as he watched to see what his son would come up with. Your analysis. Shikamaru moved one of his horses and leaned back slightly. Risks, minimal effort, low to medium, payoff ranging from minimal to maximum, depending on various factors. Most obvious factor, can Hiashi Hyuga cope with one of our gatherings? When the three clans get together, we don't stand on ceremony like they Hyuga do. If he can't, it could destroy the alliance before it can settle. I've already talked to Hiashi about it. Shikamaru nodded, looking over the board in an attempt to divine his father's strategy. I assume that you are both trying to make this alliance work. Shikaku nodded as Shikamaru moved his silver general. Nice move. Yes, we can both see the goal we are working towards. Shikamaru nodded, then scowled as his father dropped a lance onto the board in just the right place to threaten his defense. Hinata and Ruto are coming. Choji repeated, looking at his father. That's good, I like them. They don't make fun of me like some of the others do. Hinata really likes cinnamon rolls, and Ruto loves ramen. He eats at Ichiraku's at least once a week. Tauza nodded, making a mental note to consider hiring Tucci and his daughter to help with the food preparation for a future gathering if Ruto became a regular guest. Anything else I should know? Choji frowned and thought for several moments, then he shook his head, only that he somehow eats through his mask. Ino almost went mad trying to work that one out. Tauza snorted in amusement. Sounds like an Jonin trick. I think it was invented by Hada Kakashi. He always wears a mask and uses a genjutsu to hide when he drops it. When Ino touched it, it was solid. Tauza raised his eyebrows at that. Really? Sounds like a proper Anbu trick. They perch their masks on their foreheads ready to drop with a slight twitch. It's hidden by the genjutsu. Choji mused. I wonder if Ino has found out about that trick yet. Will you tell her? Choji shook his head. Nah, it's fun watching her get all worked up providing she isn't getting worked up at me. That is, I'm just surprised one of her relatives hasn't told her about it. Chapter 5. They're here. Ino's shouted declaration sliced through the thrum of conversation, and the three heads of clans promptly excused themselves from their respective conversations and walked, or in one case, ambled lazily, across to greet the new arrivals. Lord Hiashi Inoichi started and then he paused, staring at the dark-haired man. Wachauza said, nice tunic. Hitomi embroidered it for me, Hiashi replied, giving his wife a small but heartfelt smile. Since this gathering was explicitly described as being casual wear, I thought it would be suitable. Great design, Chauza noted. I like how the trousers bring the colors out more. The flowers are very recognizable. I'm impressed, Inoichi added. Thank you, Hiashi nodded as Hitomi smiled, then he looked down at the three children with him. Hinata, Hanabi, go and socialize. Ruto, you go as well, but we may need you later. Ruto half bowed and then turned to follow the two girls. As he caught up to them, Hinata snagged one of his arms, while Hanabi scrambled onto his back. Ino scurried across to guide them to where the other youngsters of the clans had assembled. We're glad you could make it, Shikaku noted, then his mouth turned slightly upwards. We'll try not to make it too troublesome for you. Hiashi's lips twitched briefly into a smile at Shikaku's little joke as he allowed his wife and himself to be led towards one of the several groups of adults. By the way, where's Niji? He came down with a cold and sends his apologies. Hey, Ruto, Hinata, Choji said in greeting as Ino dragged the trio to them. Hello. Hanabi came the giggling response, and Choji nodded to the little girl perched on Naruto's back. Hello, Hanabi-chan. Don't I deserve a chan? Hinata mock whined and Choji started stammering before Hinata giggled, giving away the fact that she was joking. And I thought Ino was the only troublesome girl here. What was that, Shika? Ino roared and Shikamaru simply sighed. Sorry, you are the only one. Ino blinked several times as she thought about what he had said, then she turned to Hinata. Just ignore him. Hinata giggled again as Naruto swung Hanabi down to the ground. Hanabi promptly scurried over to Choji and tried to climb up his side, much to the large boy's surprise. Hanabi-chan loves shoulder rides, Naruto shrugged, and Choji nodded. Reaching down, he plucked Hanabi off the ground and placed the laughing girl on his own shoulders. My dad used to carry me like this when I was young, he explained with a slight shrug. May as well get some practice in. Hanabi giggled as Choji started to lumber forwards. He moves almost the same way Hinata does, Shikaku noted, and Hiashi nodded slightly. My brother is teaching him the katas of Bagwazhang, Hiashi said, and the other three Jonin nodded. The art Gyuikin evolved from Inoichi commented explains a lot. But he's learning another style, a more linear one, Shikaku continued, watching as Chauza's son laughed at something Hinata had said. And until now I thought that Mido guy was supposed to be the Taijutsu expert of Konoha. Hiashi deadpanned, just warn us before you decide to start wearing green spandex, please. Tauza had unfortunately been drinking as Hiashi made his comment, and his snort of laughter resulted in a dramatic spray of watered fruit juice, briefly encompassing his head. Choking, he made several grasping motions until Hiashi fished a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it over so that the larger man could wipe his face. I think I need to ask my cousin to remove that image from my mind, Inoichi stated, although his grin belied his words. Shika and green spandex, that picture is troublesome. Thousa laughed as Shikaku responded to Inoichi's comment the same way that he had responded to Hiyashi's passing the cloth across to his teammate. He smirked as Shikaku wiped the drink from his face. I think that this is going to be a fun gathering, he chortled, glancing at the group of children. Hinata dropped her toothbrush back into its cup before walking into the bedroom. Climbing into bed, she briefly activated her Byakugan before snuggling against her fiancé, her head resting on his shoulder and his chin pressed against her scalp. I thought that today went very well, Naruto said quietly, and Hinata nodded with a slight hum of pleasure as Naruto's arm wrapped around her shoulders. I think Hanabi wanted to adopt Choji as her newest big brother, Naruto added, causing Hinata to nod and giggle at the memory of Choji's face when Hanabi had flopped into his lap, snuggled into his chest and fallen asleep. He'll be a great father someday. Hinata nodded again, then she sighed. I think Shikamaru suspects. Naruto stroked her hair as he considered his answer. Before they had left for the Nara compound, Hiyashi had briefly and privately informed Naruto about how Shikamaru had deduced his real identity and his Kekai Genkai, although Shikamaru had also wrongly deduced that Naruto went cloaked all the time because of lightning-induced burns and not because he couldn't actually deactivate his invisibility. Ino was asking about how we lived together. Hinata giggled when I told her we slept in the same bed. She almost fainted. So that's why she was giving me odd looks. Naruto realized. I wondered why she kept turning red. Hinata released another giggle as she snuggled closer to her fiancé. You kept doing that after we first met too. Naruto realized. You never told me why, though. Hinata didn't answer and Naruto glanced down, smiling as he realized that she had fallen asleep. Sleep well, Hinata, he whispered, then he reached out and snagged the blindfold that he wore to reduce the amount of light that reached his eyes. Being invisible meant that quite often, he'd find himself able to see the inside of the blindfold depending on the ambient light, but it was still better than seeing every stray beam of light from the lanterns that illuminated the paths at night. Invisible eyelids were often more trouble than people thought. I think that went well, Chaoza said as he lifted his saucer of sake. Shikaku nodded lazily in agreement. I think my daughter learned far more than she ever expected to. Inoichi sniggered. I lost count of how many times she blushed whenever Hinata or Ruto were near her. Thousa chuckled at the memory, then his smile widened. When Choji finally grows up, he'll make a great dad. I heard the youngest Hyuga call him cousin while he was giving her a shoulder ride. So Shikaku yawned. Your opinion, do you think that the gamble will pay off? Heck, yes, Chaoza, grinning widely. A clan alliance with a clan of ultimate stealth practitioners and the Hyuga. I'd say that was more than worth the risk. Might be worth thinking about team variations for future generations, Inoichi mused. I mean, the Ino Shikacho style team is getting to be quite well known, and as we all know, predictability is the downfall of a ninja. True, Shikaku agreed. Let's think about this 5 possibilities that gives 10 team variations just using the Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Hyuga and Urei without repetition, and Akimichi Hyuga Urei would be best suited to heavy combat missions, while Yamanaka Hyuga Urei would be far superior in infiltration for capture. A Yamanaka Nara Hyuga would work best, assuming that Rito's chakra pool breeds true. The Urei clan will undoubtedly specialize in Kage Bunshin, thus significantly boosting their recon and covert assault skills. Have you been giving this some thought? Inoichi asked in amusement and Shikaku shook his head. No, at least, not until you mentioned it. We may want to approach Hiyashi about the possibility of occasionally training our children together so that they can get used to each other's combat styles. An interesting thought, Inoichi admitted. Having a Yamanaka protected by a Hyuga and an Akimichi so that they can use one of our wide area techniques safely could be a true game changer in large-scale battles. I think I'm following. Chaoza nodded. Of course, we won't see it in this generation or much in the next unless they choose to have a lot of children. But if their clan thrives, our great-grandchildren will be part of an alliance that will guarantee Konoha's primacy for as long as our clans last, Inoichi said. Then he smirked, and that is where we differ from those civilians. If they don't see a possible result in a few years, they don't bother, and then they wonder why we shinobi are so far ahead of them. Hinata woke up and snuggled against Naruto, listening to the beat of his heart through his ribsage. For a moment, she thought about getting up, then she smiled as, while still asleep, Naruto's arms tightened around her. Sister. Hinata's eyes flew open as Hanabi landed on them both, waking Naruto in the process. Hanabi. Hinata half scolded. Why do you keep doing that to us? Morning cuddles. Hanabi exclaimed, squirming in between Naruto and Hinata, then smiling at them as innocently as possible in the dawn light. Let me get this straight, Naruto said, laughter flickering in his voice. You woke up and instead of going to your parents, you instead decided to go down the corridor, through the hall, around the mansion and into our home, just to get your morning cuddles. Hinata sighed, then pulled Hanabi to her side of the bed, letting Naruto get up. You know that we have special training today, right? She asked as Naruto carefully deactivated the alarm clock before it could go off. Hinata opened her mouth, then looked at Naruto apologetically. Okay, Hanabi, we've got an extra towel so you can bathe with me before we have breakfast. I'll have a quick wash and then get out the clothes you need. Naruto laughed, and I'll pull out some of Hanabi-chan's clothes too. Hinata bit back a giggle at the reminder that her younger sister visited so often that they had given in and stored some of her clothing in a trunk for occasions such as those. Good morning, children. Good morning, Uncle, Hinata said as she bowed. Good morning, Hisashi-sama, Naruto echoed, then he turned his attention to the boy standing next to Hisashi. Good morning, Niji-san, I am pleased to see that you have recovered from your cold. Good morning, Niji-nai-san, Hinata echoed with a slight smile, and Niji bowed stiffly. Good morning, Hinata-san, Rito-san. Since all three of you have mastered both tree walking and water walking, it is time for you to begin learning the jutsu that was granted to the Hyuga for our alliance with the soon-to-be Ray clan, Hisashi said as he extended his arm. Hinata, Niji, use your eyes for this. Both children activated their Byakugan, and a blue sphere slowly formed in Hisashi's hand. Once complete, he held it for half a minute, then let it dissipate. What you three just saw was the Rasengan, one of the signature jutsu of the Yondaime Hokage. There are 3 stages to its development: rotation, power and stability. You must rotate the chakra in all directions, you must do so strongly, and you must maintain it even during its use, like this. The full Rasengan appeared in Hisashi's hand within a split second, and he turned and thrust it at the training log next to him. The sphere sank into the log, generating a cloud of splinters, then the log cracked into pieces and was hurled away. The Rasengan is both simple and complex at the same time, it makes the Kaiten look almost uncontrolled by comparison, Hisashi said, allowing the blue globe to dissipate again. For the first stage, I have a box of water balloons, please take one and try to spiral the water inside until the balloon bursts. Once you can do that, we will move to the next stage. Uncle Hisashi, Hinata said quietly about the Rasengan, does anyone else know that the Hyuga know it? Not at this time, Hisashi replied, until one of our number has no choice but to use it in public. We are to keep it quiet so that we have an advantage that our enemies do not expect. That means that you must not use it outside the compound unless told otherwise. We will practice for an hour and then we will move on to other jutsu. Ruto-san, there is a special one for you which your chakra reserves will allow you to make use of, but you must read the scroll first. Hi, Hisashi-sensei, Naruto replied as he accepted a water balloon. Sitting down to let himself concentrate better, he carefully extended some of his chakra and swirled the water first one way, then a second and a third, getting a feel for it. The more ways you can rotate it at once, the better, Hisashi said, watching Hinata's attempts. Ideally you should spiral your chakra in all directions. Naruto nodded slightly and turned his attention back to the water balloon in his hands. A pop distracted him, and he looked up to see Hinata triumphantly hold up several wet scraps of rubber. Well done, Hinata-sama, Hisashi smiled, perhaps you can help Ruto-san, since you can see his chakra, whereas the rest of us cannot. Hinata nodded and scooted to Naruto's side. After a moment, she leaned closer to him. You're spinning it in only one direction, Ruto-kun, think of it like a whirlpool, but all round. Naruto nodded and turned his concentration to the small ball of water once again. A moment passed, then Naruto sighed and shook his head. I need a different approach. Perhaps this may help, Hisashi said, handing a small scroll over. Naruto accepted it and opened it. Page Bunshin. You have more than enough chakra for that, and its learning attributes may help you in much the same way that the Byakugan helps us Hyuga to learn, Hisashi explained. Read the scroll and learn the jutsu, while Hinata-san and Niji-kun learn the Rasengan. Once you have the Kage Bunshin mastered, I am certain that Hinata-san will be eager to oversee your tuition in your father's jutsu. Naruto nodded in gratitude and walked to the corner of the field, settling down to read through the scroll, while Hinata continued to practice exploding the water balloons. After half an hour, she gave her uncle a curious glance. I have to ask, how does Kage Bunshin differ from the normal Bunshin? Shadow clones are chakra constructs that are solid, Hisashi explained. They require a large amount of chakra, which is why you generally have to be at least high chunin before you are allowed to learn it. The amount of chakra it needs is normally between 1 and 2/3 of the average high chunin's chakra pools. With Ruto-san's chakra reservoirs, he probably will not even notice the drain needed to make a single clone. It will be interesting to see how many he can create. Hinata nodded, then she frowned. Will the clones be invisible too? Almost certainly, Hisashi nodded. With Ruto's chakra being impossible for most of us to see, we can expect his clones to be likewise. Done it? Everyone turned to see, and Hisashi's eyebrows shot up as he looked at the 7 Narutos. How? Easy, Naruto shrugged. It uses loads of chakra, and chakra is what I have loads of. Even so, that was, what? Your first go? Third Naruto laughed. All those chakra exercises really helped me work out how my chakra was supposed to be shaped. Well, Hisashi said after a moment, use one of your clones to finish reading the scroll. By the way, why aren't your clones invisible? Naruto tilted his head in confusion, then turned to look at his clones. They are. Their clothes aren't. Neither are mine, Naruto pointed out, and his Ashi squeezed his eyes closed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Naruto-sama, your clones are made from your chakra, which is invisible, so they should be invisible as well. Really? Naruto asked. I didn't know that. Did you even read the notes on the jutsu? Naruto shook his head and his Ashi sighed. Have your clone dispel after it finishes reading the scroll, maybe later we can work out just how you managed to do that. The Ashi stared at his brother in mere shock. Let me see if I understand this. Despite his chakra being invisible, Naruto can create clones with clothing as visible as his own. In addition, his henge lets him attain full visibility. Yes, brother, his Ashi replied stoically, not showing a single trace of the near breakdown he'd had, as he had tried to understand how Naruto had managed something that really shouldn't have been possible. I must point out that unlike a normal henge, which is a genjutsu overlay, Naruto-san's version is an actual shape change, although his chakra remains invisible. That shouldn't be possible, Ashi managed, and his Ashi shrugged slightly. I believe that we will find ourselves saying that quite a bit in the next few years. Brother Naruto-san seems to redefine the rules of jutsu. Both my son and Hinata-sama are trying to learn Naruto-san's version of the henge. The Ashi nodded slowly. I admit that I'm amazed at how fast he learned the Kage Bunshin. I was as well, until I thought about it, his Ashi said, and he Ashi cocked an inquisitive eyebrow at him. Naruto-san and Hinata-sama help each other almost constantly. Hinata-sama said that she taught Naruto-san how to concentrate, while he helped her to learn new ways of looking at situations, such as that interesting training session you had with her last week. The Ashi hid a wince. Hinata had asked for permission to prepare for the sparring session beforehand, and he Ashi hadn't realized just what she meant as a result. He had finished the session covered in paint and itching powder from the various traps that Hinata and Naruto had concealed around, beneath and above the sparring square, while the bruises from the catapulted rubber balls had taken several days to fade, even with the application of healing jutsu. The Ashi had made a mental note to never give Hinata permission to prepare like that again, and to also ensure that the Hyuga clan's training in traps and trap detection was at least doubled. It was quite terrifying how even with the Byakugan, he had been hard-pressed to see the traps before they activated. I oversaw them taking an intelligence test a couple of weeks ago, his Ashi said, and he Ashi snapped his mental meanderings back to what his brother was saying. Naruto has a very unusual type of intelligence, although he is only very slightly above average in most things. When it comes to improvisation or kinesthetic learning, he is at genius level. Hinata-sama rates as more intelligent than him in general. But she does not have the same out-of-the-box thinking abilities as Naruto-san. I sometimes wonder if Naruto-san even knows there is a box to think outside of. And that means? He Ashi prompted. And Naruto-san quite literally learns by doing, his Ashi said. He learns from every attempt he makes, it does not matter if he succeeds or fails. Impressive, he Ashi managed, and his Ashi's lips quirked briefly into what an observer might uncharitably call a smirk. He is a genius of hard work. It is no wonder that he, Rock Lee and Mido Guy get along so well. The Ashi almost managed to hide a wince at the reminder. He still hadn't lived down the fact that he had lost a bet and thus had to wear a green spandex uniter to one of Mido Guy's training exercises. Fortunately, Hinata had put her foot down and somehow persuaded Lee not to wear a similar outfit himself. He Ashi wasn't sure if he could stomach seeing two shinobi in that ever-damned outfit. Should we expedite their passage through the academy? As Ashi shook his head. I would not advise it, brother. They have friends and are forming bonds with the various clan heirs. I do not see how removing them from it will help the clan. The Ashi nodded slowly. His brother was right, which was why he relied on him so much. Fortunately, he didn't need to worry about what would happen should his brother not be there to help. Hami only knew what might have happened had that been the case. Chapter 6. Emi no Iruka entered the classroom and hid a smile as the noise level dropped precipitously behind him. Mizuki closed the door and made his way to the smaller desk in the corner of the room as Iruka took his place behind the main desk, looking out at the students before him. As you know, today is the day that you are tested to see if you can become Genin of Konohagakure, he said with a proud smile. All of you here have demonstrated that you have the basic skills required to become a shinobi, but now it is time to officially prove it, Mizuki. Mizuki nodded as he pulled a sheaf of papers from the desk and moved around the classroom, placing one set of papers in front of each of the students. You have half an hour to answer as many of the questions as you can, Iruka said, looking at the clock mounted on the wall. The test will end at 9:30. You may begin. Within seconds, the sound of pencils scraping against paper filled the classroom, and Mizuki returned to stand beside Iruka. So, who do you think will be Rookie of the Year? He said quietly. My money would be on Uchiha Sasuke if I was allowed to bet. Ever since his brother discovered that Sasuke's main affinity was lightning rather than fire, he's been making considerable progress. I think it'll be either Hyuga Hinata or Yurairito, Iruka countered, keeping an eye out to ensure that no one was cheating. You've seen how the two of them push each other to do better. Mizuki nodded, then he glanced over at the girl with bright pink hair. I thought that Haruno Sakura would be the Kunoichi of the year, she's really improved her physical capabilities after Sasuke was overheard saying that he had no interest in weak girls and with her memory skills. Almost as good as Nara Shikamaru, I know, Iruka noted, glaring at where the aforementioned boy had fallen asleep. Fortunately she doesn't have his laziness. Looks like Inyazuka Kiba will be the dead last, Mizuki added as he glanced over at the tattooed boy who was swearing under his breath as he struggled with the exam sheet. Inyazuka's never do well with anything paper related, as his mother so memorably proved. Iruka managed not to laugh as he remembered Inyazuka Tsume's last foray into trying to deal with paperwork while the Hokage was away on business. The floor of the Hokage's office still showed traces of ash and claw marks from when she had lost her temper with the bureaucratic process. Yamanaka Ino's doing almost as well as Sakura, Mizuka stated in surprise. I knew that they were friends, but they often trained together, Iruka supplied, earning a curious glance. Several of the clans are partially cross-training their children. The move was started by the Nara and the Hyuga, and the others soon joined in, even the Abiram. Both teachers glanced at the shades-wearing dark-haired stoic boy in the corner furthest from the windows. I heard that Choji has already taken several unofficial missions, babysitting the younger Hyuga daughter, Iruka added, as the chubby boy in question turned over the first page of the test and started on the second. Rumor has it that she calls him cousin now. I heard that as well, Mizuki noted, then he snorted in amusement. You realize that we've just swapped gossip about all 9 of our students. Iruka paused, then grinned in wry amusement. Sweet Kami, we've turned into a pair of old housewives. Back to speaking of the Uchiha, Mizuki said, referring to an earlier point in their conversation. I heard that Itachi is being personally trained by Hiruzen to take over as the new Hokage in a few more years. An Uchiha as the Godame Hokage, Iruka mused. That would certainly fulfill Uchiha Madara's dream, wouldn't it? Mizuki nodded and looked over the industrious students once again. You know, the Yandame's son would have been amongst this lot had he not died and taken the Kyuubi with him. Naruto. Iruka mused, missing the way that the masked student twitched slightly as he said it. Yeah, now that you mention it, he would have become an amazing ninja. Or a terrible one, given how many people couldn't tell the difference between him and the Kyuubi, Mizuki countered, and Iruka slowly nodded. I'd like to think I wouldn't have made that mistake, but maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't. But it didn't happen, so there's no need to worry about it, Mizuki shrugged. The chattering students filed off the Taijutsu practice area, or limped in a couple of cases, and onto the target range, congregating behind the safety line as Mizuki started to hand out kunai and shuriken to those who didn't already have enough. Alright, Iruka stated, when I call your name, step forwards and demonstrate your proficiency with shuriken first, then kunai abiram. Shino stepped forwards and with methodical, precise moves, flung his shuriken and kunai at the man-shaped targets. Iruka nodded as he looked at the results. 3 fatal strikes on the kunai, 4 bleed-out points with the shuriken, 83 points total. Akamichi. Hinata's grip tightened on Naruto's hand and he looked at her. You'll do fine, Hinata Haim, with your skills, your score will be perfect, just like you are. Hinata blushed and giggled as she swatted Naruto's shoulder. Have you been taking lessons from Ko? You're turning into almost as large a flirt as he is. But it's only you I flirt with, because to me, you're the only one worth flirting with, Naruto shot back, causing Hinata's blush to intensify, even as she let him enfold her in a reassuring hug. Hyuga. Iruka called, interrupting them, and Hinata sighed as she extracted herself from Naruto's embrace. Go and show them how perfect you are, Naruto whispered, and Hinata stepped forwards to the line, opening her kunai pouch. She paused for a second, then spun on the spot, using her spin to accelerate the projectiles so that they thunked into the targets. Several of the others whistled in amazement. Perfect score, Iruka said in amazement as Hinata retrieved her weapons. Inyazuka. Final test, Iruka said as Naruto retrieved his weapons and pocketed them with a hidden smirk. Since he had equaled both Hinata and Sasuke's score, the 3 academy basics are advanced versions thereof, and for bonus points, up to 2 more jutsu of your choice. Once again, we will be going in alphabetical order. Hinata glanced at Naruto, then blinked. Naruto-kun, why are you hinged as yourself? My visible clothes are over there, Naruto whispered back, motioning to a small bush growing by the corner of the academy. I'm going to use my natural invisibility as one of my bonus jutsu. Hinata nodded in understanding, then she glanced over at the fence and her eyes widened as Ko walked past, giving her a significant glance and then looking at the covered board that he was carrying under his arm, activating her Byakugan. Hinata looked at the board, then nodded to show that she understood the message written on it. What is it, Hinata Haim? One of the clan was seen using the Rasengan in the field, and word has spread, Hinata whispered back. I can now use it in public. That's one of your bonus jutsu, sorted, then Naruto noted, and Hinata nodded as Shino made a Kikai Bunshin instead of the academy variant, then used Kawarimi to swap places with it before dispelling it back into its constituent insects. Will you be doing an academy Bunshin? Hinata shook her head. No, I've been practicing the Mizubunshin. I've also got the 32 strikes mastered, so I'll be using that as well. Naruto nodded. Nice, we've got the Rookie and Kinwaichi of the Year position secured. Hinata nodded as on the demonstration area, Choji turned himself into a human sphere and started to roll. What other jutsu are you planning to do, Ruto-kun? Naruto shrugged, I still can't do the other of the two jutsus of my father's, while doing my mother's jutsu is not an option if I wish to keep my secret. You're doing the Rasengan, and I don't want to lessen the impact. I think great breakthrough while still invisible would be best. Hinata nodded, looked at Sakura, who was finishing the Kawarimi. I guess I'm up now, she sighed as she walked onto the testing area bound to Iruka and Mizuki. She performed a perfect Kawarimi and then hinged into Naruto before reverting back. A couple of hand seals caused several of the students to gasp as water flowed out of the nearby pond, placed for use with Suiton jutsus, and rose to form 3 solid clones of Hinata. Excellent on the 3. Iruka nodded. Do you have any bonus jutsu you wish to demonstrate? Hinata nodded and faced one of the training dummies. 8 trigrams 32 palms. She announced and her hands blurred, striking the dummy with brief bursts of chakra. Stepping back, she then held out one hand and the entire field seemed to freeze as a pale blue chakra sphere formed on it. Rasengan. The sphere ripped through the dummy, sending the top half flying and Mizuki whistled. That was incredible. How do you know the Yondame's second jutsu? It was gifted to the Hyuga clan several years ago, Hinata explained, and Iruka nodded. Perfect score with bonus points, well done. Hinata bowed and scurried back to Naruto's side, blushing slightly as he hugged her. You did brilliantly, Hinata. He whispered. Hinata smiled and relaxed into his embrace until she heard Naruto being called. When she whispered and Naruto nodded as he strode forwards, coming to a stop in the middle of the testing ground, activating her Byakugan, Hinata managed not to giggle at the sight of a dozen of Naruto's invisible cage bunshin, taking position around the field, even as Naruto hinged into her, and then back again. A second later, Naruto seemed to flicker around the field as the clones sequentially replaced themselves with him, causing almost everyone's jaws to drop. Then Naruto spun and 3 of the clones hinged into visibility, making it seem like he had done a seal-less bunshin. Perfect score. Iruka finally managed any bonus jutsu. Like Kekai Genkai, Naruto replied as he slowly released his hinge, making it seem that he was fading into invisibility. A moment passed, then a blast of wind caused the trees along the side of the field to bow, leaves scattering in the unexpected gust. Great breakthrough, Naruto said, hinging himself back into visibility. Performed while invisible, and to prove it was me. Flashing through the hand signs, Naruto unleashed another gust at the trees. Incredible, Iruka breathed in amazement. You get full bonus points. The Hokage's office was fairly crowded as Saratobi Hiruzen handed out the assignments to the Jonin volunteers. And that's almost all of the civilian born, he finished. Hopefully some of the teams will make it, and of the rest, we may be able to salvage a few more for our regular forces. You may go. The Jonin filed out, leaving only 3 remaining. Hiruzen leaned back and looked at the trio. Kakashi, I'm assigning you to Team 10, the new Inoshikacho trio, since they already have their teamwork up to better than average levels. According to what their fathers told me, you should be able to move on to helping them come up with new ways to use their skills. Hi, Hokage-sama, the silver-haired Jonin said lazily, his one exposed eye gazing at the orange-colored book he was holding. Kurenai, I'm giving you Team 8, Uchiha Sasuke, Aburam Shino and Haruno Sakura. With their abilities, they should excel at tracking and infiltration. I would advise you to get Sakura trained as a Mednin at the very least. She has chakra control about equal to yours, although her reserves could use some work. Yes, Lord Hokage, the dark-haired red-eyed woman replied, then she glanced at the 3rd Jonin. I will look after your brother, don't worry. Thank you. As for you, Itachi, I'm giving you Team 7, the Rookie and Kinwaichi of the Year, plus the dead last year Naruto, Hyuga Hinata and Inuzuka Kiba. Itachi's lips curled into a slight smile. This should be interesting. Yes, when are you and Hana going to get married, anyway? Kakashi asked and Itachi's lips quirked upwards for a brief second. So, I get the ghost, the princess and my future brother-in-law on my team, Itachi mused. This will be. Itachi paused as a knock sounded on the door, then it opened to reveal a bearded man. Hi, Pops. Asuma Hiruzen said with a nod. You missed out on all the fun. I was assigning teams. I'm afraid that if you want one, you'll have to try again in 6 months. What kept you? Meh, diplomatic stuff. Asuma shrugged. The daimyo was doing an inspection of his samurai's bases, and things got fraught for a while when some things that someone had tried to import from the land of demons managed to escape. We got it under control, but I had to spend a month healing before I could return. Well, at least Konohamaru will be happy to see you. Hiruzen smiled. Oh. Itachi, one of your students has a strong wind affinity. Both Itachi and Asuma looked at Hiruzen in interest, and the old man smirked at them. I'll let you figure out which one. For a moment, no one spoke, then Itachi turned to face Asuma. When it is time. Sure, but you'll owe me for when I get my own team, Asuma replied. Itachi simply nodded. Understood. Congratulations, Hiashi said, rookie and Kunoichi of the year. Thanks, Hiashi saw. Naruto laughed as he intercepted a ballistic hanabi and swung her up to his shoulders. So, the Rasengan is now public knowledge. It is. Hiashi confirmed. Hyuga Akane was unable to take down all of her enemies during a mission, and at least one enemy shinobi managed to retreat after witnessing her using a Rasengan to take down an enemy who was using some strange form of stone body armor. Stone body armor? Naruto repeated in surprise. Wow, that would do a real number on Gyuukin's capabilities under normal circumstances. Indeed, Hiashi agreed. Had it not been for the Rasengan, Akane might even now be in captivity. Hinata hugged Naruto, taking care not to dislodge her sister. Thank you. Oh, I have a gifts for you both to celebrate your passing, Hiashi said, and Hisashi entered with a pair of boxes. He handed one each to Naruto and Hinata, then plucked Hanabi off Naruto's shoulders, placing her on his own before she could protest. Thank you. Hinata gasped as she opened her present to reveal a kimono patterned with the Hyuga crest, the Urei crest and the Konoha leaf in a triangle on the back. That is a battle kimono, Hiashi said. The obi contains a number of storage seals sewn into the fabric, while the kimono itself has a mesh armor layer for protection against slashing attacks. Hinata returned the kimono to its box and gave her father a hug. Thank you, Tusan. You are welcome, Hiashi whispered. Then he looked at Naruto, who was examining the contents of his box, holding up a facial protector engraved with the Konoha symbol. The Hapurai is made of chakra metal. Please place some of your own chakra into it. Naruto did so, and the Hapurai and the fabric band that it was mounted on both faded into invisibility. The Hakama is also made of chakra reactive fabric, so you will not need to shed as many clothes to hide, Hiashi added. This first one is a gift from the Hyuga clan, but if you wish more, it will have to come from your inheritance. You have already done far more for me than I have any right to expect, Naruto replied with a deep bow. There is a pair of custom sandals underneath made from chakra metal and chakra reactive fabric, Hiashi added. They will provide less protection than boots or standard ninja sandals, but it means you will no longer have to fight barefoot. Thank you, Hiashi Dono, Naruto said with another bow. Now, I believe that you have some few ninjutsu lessons to attend. Hiashi prompted and Naruto nodded. Go, I shall have the gifts placed in your house. Naruto bowed again and backed out of the entry hall before running off to one of the training dojos. Hinata, you and Naruto will be on the same team, Hiashi said, earning a grateful look from his eldest daughter. I am informed that the third shall be Inyazuka Kiba, and your sensei will be Uchiha Itachi. Ouch, Hinata winced with Itachi dating Hana. May I go and start persuading Kiba that he will need to behave? Hiashi nodded and Hinata bowed before scurrying off. I will inform Naruto-san where Hinata-sama has gone after his lesson in the art of seals, Hisashi murmured, and Hiashi nodded. Thank you, brother. Coming. Hinata hid a smile as she heard Kiba coming towards the door, occasionally pausing to swear or push something away from him. Although she could theoretically have used her Byakugan to observe what was happening, such a thing would have been a breach of the Inyazuka clan's privacy. Down, boy. Down. Good boy. Okay, Hinata. Hey, what you doing here? Good morning, Kiba-san, Hinata said with a small bow. Have you been informed of the teams yet? I think mom knows, but I haven't had a chance to ask, Kiba mused. You should ask Ino, with her gossiping skills, she probably knows it already. I did not come to ask you for the information, Kiba-san, Hinata said quietly. May I enter? Huh? Oh, sure, please, come in, Kiba said, stepping aside to let her in. Do you want anything to eat or drink? Hinata shook her head slightly. Thank you, but no, Kiba-san, I am here because I know which team I am on. And you needed a shoulder to cry on? Kiba asked. Did you get assigned to a different one than Ruto? I am on Ruto-kun's team, Hinata replied, and so are you. For a moment, Kiba simply stared at her, then his eyebrows shot up. Wow, really? I'm with you and Ruto. Damn, that's cool. Our sensei will be Uchiha Itachi, Hinata said quickly, and Kiba inhaled sharply. What? That no good bastard. What no good bastard? A voice asked and Kiba flinched. Nothing to worry about, sis, really, nothing at all. I think that your brother just found out about the team he is going to be assigned to, or to be more precise, who his Jonin sensei will be, Itachi's amused voice said, and Kiba winced. I'm dead, I am so dead, he whimpered. So, you, my idiot brother and Ruto, huh? Hana said, giving Kiba a sidelong glance that made him shrink back. I wonder if we'll find out what Ruto looks like. Did you know that the Chunin and Jonin have been placing bets? Tell me, is he handsome under that mask? Hinata blushed and her hand reflexively went to the pocket, holding the most recent sketch that she had been working on. Hana caught the movement and quickly filched the paper, unfolding it and whistling. Wow, what a dish. If I wasn't with red eyes here, I might have been tempted. Hana-san. Hinata growled, retrieving the picture and tucking it into an inner pocket. Hana stepped back and raised her hands defensively. Sorry. It's just that the curiosity has been driving us all nuts. You're one lucky girl, though, you know that. Hinata blushed, one hand protectively placed over the folded sketch in her pocket. Chapter 7. Imino Iruka entered the classroom and hid a smile as the noise level dropped precipitously. "Welcome back, class," he said with a smile, then he let his face assume a more serious expression. "Due to a training accident, Mizuki will not be joining us. The details are rather embarrassing, so I am sure that he would prefer you to not ask about it." Hinata and Naruto looked at each other, and Hinata huffed. They had been told by a branch member that Mizuki had made the mistake of trying to break into the Hokage's tower to steal the forbidden scroll, just as the Hokage was heading for a quiet meeting with Hiashi about covertly transferring all the money in the old Namikaze and Uzumaki accounts over to the new Yurei clan accounts between Hiruzen's Bijutsu and Hiashi's Jyuukin. Mizuki had been lucky to survive. Although the injuries he had sustained meant that even after he finished serving his prison sentence, he would be unable to mold chakra or fight even at standard civilian levels. The other classes have already been assigned as teams 1 through 6. Team 7 will be. Iruka paused as a knock sounded on the door, then it opened to reveal a trio of jonin. "Are we late?" the tall, silver-haired one asked, and Iruka shook his head in disbelief. "Actually, Kakashi, you're early. The Hokage told him to come 3 hours ago," the woman said with a smile. "My name is Yuhi Kurenai, and I am here for Team 8. Please will Uchiha Sasuke, Haruna Sakura and Aburam Shino come with me?" "Yes." The pink-haired girl shouted as she leapt up. "Same team as Sasuke-kun." Sakura quailed under the sudden death glare that Kurenai gave her. "If you wish to pass, you will not act like a fangirl on this team," she ground out, and Sakura nodded jerkily. "Good, now come on." As the three followed their teacher, Sasuke paused and looked at his older brother. "You will do fine, little brother." Itachi smiled at him. "She is an excellent jonin and a true expert at Jinjutsu Go." Sasuke nodded and dashed off as Kakashi slouched forwards. "Ino Shikacho Juniors, also known as Team 10, meet me on the roof," he said, before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Itachi stepped out of the way as Ino ran past, followed by Choji and a slouching Shikamaru. "Well, I believe that means that you three with me." Itachi smiled. "Iruka-san, thank you for training them. I know that you must feel saddened to see them leave." Iruka nodded with a bittersweet smile. "I know you three will do me proud." "We will, Iruka-sensei." Kiba half shouted and Itachi waved for them to follow him. Training Ground 7. At the training ground, Itachi sank down to sit cross-legged on the grass, leaning against the middle of the 3 target posts. As the 3 genin settled down in front of him, Itachi began speaking. "As you know, I am Uchiha Itachi, Inyazuka Hana's current boyfriend and fiancé. I enjoy training, being with Hana, and teaching my younger brother Sasuke. My dislikes are those who act without honor or who shirk their duties, and my dreams for the future are to help Konoha to become all that it can be. To that end, I will do my utmost to help you become the best ninja that you can be, assuming that you can work together. Kiba, please tell me about Ruto." Kiba blinked a few times as he thought, then he shrugged. "Ruto, he has a weird Kekai Genkai that lets him turn invisible and has no scent, which is how I know that it's him under that mask. He's very close to Hinata. I heard that they may be getting married at some point in the past. Hinata saved his life, but I don't know the details." "Excellent," Itachi said. "Hinata, please tell me about Kiba." Hinata bowed slightly before speaking. "Kiba-san and his Ninkin Akamaru are from the Inyazuka clan. Kiba has enhanced senses and can perform several of the Inyazuka partnership jutsu, as well as understanding what Akamaru says. His older sister is a chunin and a vet with a subspeciality in Ninkin. Although prone to impulsive acts, Kiba has a very strong sense of pack and will face down any threat to protect those he cares about." Kiba glowed with pride as Itachi nodded. "Good, Ruto." Hyuga Hinata is the former heiress of the Hyuga clan. She chose to step down in favor of her younger sister so that she could be with me, although I still think the price was too high, Naruto said, earning a look from Hinata that mingled love, exasperation and resignation. "Hinata Haim has only basic skills in Jyuukin, but is highly proficient in Juho, a fact which is at least partially explained by her strong water nature. She prefers not to seek attention, but has a very strong personality." But Itachi said, "Now the other way around. Kiba, describe Hinata." "She's a babe," Kiba said, then he winced as his brain caught up with what his mouth had said. Sorry. "I see." Itachi sighed. "We will have to work on that. Hinata, please describe Ruto." Hinata blushed. "I Naruto-kun he." "Never mind." Itachi sighed. "Ruto." Inyazuka Kiba is the second child of Inyazuka Tsume, the leader of the Inyazuka packs. His partner is the white-furred Ninkin Akamaru, and the two of them have a strong bond. Kiba is prone to making thoughtless comments and speaking before thinking, but his loyalty is beyond reproach and he is completely trustworthy. "But you all have at least some idea about each other," Itachi said. "I have read your files and watched a graduation test. Ruto, my cousin Shisui was quite flabbergasted when he heard that you had duplicated the trick for which he is famous, but I could not see you using any chakra. How is this?" Naruto paused, then reached up and unhooked his mask, removing it so that everyone could see his apparently empty hood. My Toten Kekai Genkai is always activated unless I use Henge. I am naturally invisible, only Hinata and Hanabi can't see me, and even then they have to be using their Byakugans. Itachi blinked and his eyes briefly flared red. I cannot see you with my Sharingan. I admit that it is slightly disconcerting. Naruto shrugged. My Kage Bunshin are naturally invisible too. I deployed over a dozen before the test and had them Kawarimi with me as quickly as they could. Thus giving the impression that you were doing a high-speed seal-less Shunshin. Itachi realized brilliant. My clones can also Kawarimi with other people, Naruto continued. On a couple of occasions, one of my clones have accidentally swapped places with Hinata Haim. I don't know how many clones I can make, last time I paid attention, I had made over 100. Itachi whistled. Should we enter a potentially dangerous situation, I will have you leave 5 clones trailing us, so that should we be trapped, they can Kawarimi us to safety. We will have to practice that, though. Can you become visible? Only if I henge, and I can only hold that for a few hours, Naruto said. Same for my clones, they're invisible unless they henge themselves for some reason. Hinata finds them easier to see. Possibly because they are pure chakra constructs. Itachi mused. Please, make a few clones. Naruto's hands moved briefly into a cross seal, and as several near silent pop sounded, Itachi activated his Sharingan and looked round. I still cannot see you, but I think I can just make out your clones. They are like ripples in the air. Thank you. I admit to being very impressed. Normally, I would set a test to see if you were worthy of becoming my genin team, but from what I have seen of you now and read in your files, such a test would merely be a waste of your time and mine. Therefore, congratulations, Shinobi of Konoha. Yeah. Kiba shouted, leaping up in celebration as Naruto kissed Hinata on her cheek, causing her to blush. A rustle caught their attention, and they looked to see that Itachi had pulled out several pieces of paper. If you do not know your elemental affinity, please take a piece of chakra paper. Mine is water, Itachi-sensei, Hinata said quietly. I am also training in the medical arts. My primary is air, well I have lightning and fire as secondaries, Naruto said, earning a shocked look from Kiba and a raised eyebrow from Itachi. I don't know what I am, Kiba admitted, and Itachi passed across 2 pieces of paper. One for you and one for Akamaru, Itachi explained. Channel some chakra into the paper. Ibe frowned, then his groan turned to shock as the paper in his hand crumbled. Earth, an excellent element for strength, Itachi said, then he glanced at Akamaru, and it seems that Akamaru has a lightning affinity, excellent for piercing attacks. Cool, Kiba grinned as Akamaru yapped in agreement. I cannot help with Akamaru's use of lightning beyond the basics, though Itachi warned, all of my lightning jutsu require hand seals. We'll work something out, Kiba smirked. Hey, we know that Akamaru's a lightning type now, that gives us a good starting point. Indeed it does, Itachi agreed. We shall meet here tomorrow at 9 o'clock to start your training. Kiba, Akamaru, please relay my respects to your mother and tell her that I said that she raised a fine shinobi. Kiba puffed up with pride at that. And that you don't seem too bad yourself, Itachi added in a deadpan voice, earning himself a disbelieving glare from Kiba. Hinata and Naruto both managed not to giggle, but it was a close run thing. Kiba growled and stalked off, while Itachi made several fast seals before turning to Hinata and Naruto. Hinata, you referred to Naruto as Naruto. Why? Hinata froze as Itachi gave her an expectant look, then Naruto sighed. I saw you making some seals. Does that mean that we are secure? At Itachi's nod, Naruto continued. I was born Uzumaki Naruto, an accident turned me invisible and made everyone think I had died. I heard the Hokage's speech about who I really was and my burden, then I encountered Hinata Hime and she offered me sanctuary. Her father was kind enough to help me take a new name and train as a shinobi. Interesting, Itachi mused. May I discuss this with the Hokage? He knows, as do several of my clan, but I do not think anyone else does, Hinata said quietly. Then I shall make certain that it remains a secret, Itachi said with a nod verging on being a formal bow. I shall see you both tomorrow, then. Well, you'll see, Hinata Haim. Naruto laughed as he donned his mask once more. I'm invisible, remember? Indeed you are, Naruto-san, indeed you are. Itachi, you're early, Hiruzen noted, looking up from the pile of paperwork on his desk. Is there a problem with your team? Yes and no, Itachi said, glancing round. I found out about Naruto's history. Hiruzen froze, then his hands blurred into a sequence of seals that Itachi couldn't quite make out. The windows darkened and Hiruzen leaned forwards. Tell me what you learned. I was told that Naruto is none other than Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. How this came to be, I do not know. He was struck by lightning while trying to perform a chameleon jutsu, Hiruzen explained, and Itachi nodded. Lightning. I had wondered why he had multiple affinities. The bolt may have interacted with his seal in an unexpected way. It did, and his invisibility is a true Kekai Genkai, Hiruzen said. He is invisible even to my Sharingan. Hiruzen's eyebrows shot up briefly. Really? I can barely make out the Kage Bunshin that he uses, Itachi confirmed. Hinata can apparently see him well enough to draw him. Interesting, Hiruzen mused, I wonder how. I may need to speak to Hiashi about this. May I come along as well when you do? Itachi asked. Of course. Yeah. Our first mission. Kiba leapt and punched the air as he led the way into the mission office, completely missing the brief smirk that Itachi had on his face. So, what is it? Are we going to escort a caravan? Wipe out bandits? Track down a Nukenin? Rescue a princess? Well, as new genin, you are cleared for D-rank missions, Hiruzen said from his position behind the desk. Now, since you are fairly early, we have painting a fence. Kiba froze, catching Tora. Kiba's eyes widened in horror, or helping out at the Inyazuka kennels. We will take the last, Itachi said, and Kiba spun round. You just want to spend more time with my size to MMMPH. HMMPH. WRRHRRMPH. Kiba, think. Naruto hissed at the boy he was restraining. Itachi gets more time with Hana, it puts him in a better mood, and he's more likely to teach us something good. Kiba froze, then growled as he slumped. Naruto removed his hand, and Kiba glowered at him. So, you good now? Kiba growled again, and Naruto cocked his head slightly before nodding, we're good to go, sensei. Itachi nodded as he snagged the thrown scroll out of the air with a movement that bespoke incredible skill and control. Good Kiba, you know the area, led the others there. Kiba perked up. Alright. I'm the leader. Come on. Pausing to bow to the Hokage, the other two genins followed Kiba out of the room. Not going with them? I'll meet them there, Itachi said with a microscopic shrug, then he produced a picture and handed it over to Hiruzen. I thought you might appreciate seeing this, it is one of the failed pictures. Hiruzen looked at it and smirked. Itachi was stood in the background of the picture with Hinata directly in front of him. Kiba was wide-eyed and staring at Naruto, whose presence was only deducible via the apparently floating tunic, trousers, gloves and hapuri, while Akamaru was pointedly staring the other way, with an expression suggesting he was rather disconcerted. The group pose was undermined, however, by the fact that Hyuga Hanabi had chosen to spectacularly glump Naruto just at the instant that the picture was being taken. In retrospect, having the picture taken in the garden outside Hinata and Naruto's home may not have been our greatest move, Itachi admitted as Hiruzen handed the picture back with a smile. We eventually had to ask Hisashi-san to hold her so that we could take the picture without interruptions. So I saw. Hiruzen agreed. So, shouldn't you get moving? After all, you do have the mission scroll. Itachi nodded, then he seemed to vanish in a slight blur, causing Hiruzen's eyebrows to rise. Someone's been studying under Shisui, I see. Itachi stepped into the Inyazuka compound and froze, glancing round at the motionless Inyazuka and Ninken, all of whom were staring at his genin team. His team, who were floating 4 feet in the air, sat in classic meditation poses, except for Akamaru, who was simply loosely sprawled and ignoring the fact that he wasn't actually on the ground. Itachi Tsume said slowly, what have you been teaching my son? And how did you teach him so fast? It wasn't me. Itachi said quickly, then on a hunch he activated his Sharingan briefly and chuckled in amused disbelief. Alright, Rudo, you can stop that now. Dispel your invisible clones. Naruto nodded and all 3 genin and the white Ninken dropped to the ground, landing lightly as Tsume stared at them. How? Naruto-san can create invisible solid clones, Itachi shrugged, he was having them carry the team. It is a very interesting trick, though it may even be a valid combat tactic if applied correctly. After all, overestimating an enemy can be as lethal as underestimating them. True, Tsume mused, then her eyes flickered past Itachi and she grabbed the scroll from his hands. You'll be busy, so I'll handle the briefing. Itachi opened his mouth to reply, then a pair of arms wrapped around him. Hey, Ida-kun, Hana whispered into his ear as her 3 dogs started to bounce around like hyperactive puppies. Come on, let's have some fun. Kiba whinged. I so didn't need to see the blue. Quiet, pup. Tsume grinned. Group 3 needs their walks, use Route 4, got it? Okay, Mom, Kiba said, moving towards the kennel enclosure. Come on, guys. Kiba-san, Hinata said, the corner of her mouth twitching up slightly as she delivered the punchline, you are aware that I'm a girl rather than a guy, right? Kiba froze. Yeah, I meant when I said you see, Hinata started to giggle as Kiba tried to pull himself out of his verbal hole, and Kiba glared at her. You have an evil sense of humor. Rudo's a bad influence on you. Hinata gave him an innocent look and he shook his head before stalking off. They're back, Hana noted as the background noise rose slightly and Itachi sighed. Well, I guess that means that we have to stop. Drat. Hana giggled as she adjusted her top, then she stood up and stretched. You should neaten up and head out, she said, pausing to kiss Itachi's cheek. You don't want to traumatize your genin, do you? It might be worth it, Itachi countered as he watched Hana finish adjusting her clothes, but you are right, time to be a Jonin sensei again. Damn. You really need more swear words, Hana giggled as she opened the door to reveal the Himeru triplets sprawled across the threshold. Thanks guys, but we need to head out now. All 3 Ninken rose and yawned, revealing their teeth as Itachi slipped past them, giving each one a quick stroke between the ears as he did so. I will see you again this evening. Sure, Hana smirked, taking the opportunity to give him another quick kiss. I'll be waiting. Alright, Itachi said as he led his team back to their normal training ground. Since you have done such a good job, it is time for you to learn something. Can any of you perform the tree walking? Both Naruto and Hinata raised their hands, and Kiba sighed. Water walking. Both Naruto and Hinata nodded and Itachi shrugged, then made a cage bunshin. Alright Kiba, you and Akamaru are with me, the clone said, leading the duo towards the trees as Itachi looked at the other two genin. So, I guess that it is time for you to show me what other skills you have. Hi, sensei. Chapter 8. A C rank already? Hiruzen said curiously, looking at Itachi and the trio of genin lined up behind him. It has only been a month and a half, are you certain that you are not pushing them too hard? No, Lord Hokage, Itachi said. Naruto has shown that he has virtually mastered the cage bunshin, making him a literal one-man army. When you include his Kekai Genkai, his battlefield potential is quite terrifying. Hinata has shown she is very skilled in Juho and above average with thrown weapons, while Kiba and Akamaru have pushed themselves to the point that they have learned several of the more advanced jutsu of the Inuzuka. I intend to start them all on their elemental affinities soon. I believe that they have reached the level that will allow them to do so. Hiruzen nodded. Alright, I can see that you have put quite a bit of thought into this. We have an upcoming escort mission in a couple of days that I think will suit your team. Thank you, Lord Hokage, Itachi said, then he looked round and smiled at one of the group that had just entered the mission hall. Little brother. Big brother, Sasuke replied with a small smile. Kurenai, Shino-san, Sakura-chan. Kurenai nodded back as she led her team to the mission desk. Another D rank please. Of course. As Kurenai accepted the proffered scroll, Sakura gave them a calculating look. Aren't you getting a D rank too? We're getting a C rank. Kiba said before either of his teammates could silence him, and Sasuke looked slightly affronted. What? But. Itachi gave his younger brother a quelling look, even as Kurenai sighed. I don't think that you are quite ready for a C rank yet. How about a test? Itachi countered. We meet up after you have done your mission, and our students fight. Whichever team wins gets the mission. Kurenai stood still for a few moments, thinking it through, then she nodded. Alright. Then we had better take a D rank as well, so that we do not have an unfair advantage, Itachi said, turning to accept a scroll. A C rank is ours. Sakura gloated as Itachi's team appeared, causing the rest of her team to stare at her. What? You know I'm right. How did you come to that conclusion? Sasuke asked curiously, and Sakura shrugged. Hey, Naruto and Hinata may have been the top 2 rookies of the year, but Sasuke-kun and I were pretty damn close, and they've got Kiba. The dead last whoever goes against Kiba will win, while Shino can drain the chakra of whoever he's up against, and Sasuke-kun can zap whoever he's against. Sasuke smirked as he played a small bolt of electricity between 2 of his fingers. He had learned about his rate and affinity, and had worked almost obsessively to get it to a usable level, although he could do little more than deliver temporarily paralyzing shocks. And you? Shino asked. And I can slap down whoever I go against. Sakura smirked. I spar against Ino sometimes, and I'm getting good. We will see, Shino droned as Itachi greeted Kurenai. How should we do this? Kurenai asked. Best of 3 or Battle Royale? Battle Royale, Itachi replied almost instantly. It will help in testing their teamwork as well. Kurenai raised one eyebrow at the certainty in his voice, but she simply nodded. Rules. We use Training Field 35, it has several different terrains which will increase the difficulty level, and I do not believe that either of our teams has used it yet, thus negating the home field advantage. Anyone goes out of the training field, they are out of the fight. No lethal strikes, and if we think it is getting too dangerous, we stop it. Agreed, Kurenai said, noting that Itachi had gone out of his way to not try and stack the contest. Alright team, we're heading out. Team 7, on me. Sakura grinned as she and her teammates squared off against Team 7. Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered and Naruto nodded. I've already deployed some clones behind us, with some of them tasked with swapping you out if things get iffy. What's the plan? Kiba asked. Shino is the greatest threat with his Kekai, so we try to take him down first, Naruto replied quietly. I'll send a dozen clones to trap the other 2, but the chakra draining abilities of those insects makes me think that my clones won't be that useful against him. So, Akamaru and me attack Shino first, and Hinata follows us. Sounds like a plan, Naruto said. Hinata's Gyuukin could be a problem, Sasuke said slowly. She'll be our primary target. Shino, can you drain her? She uses Gyou rather than Gyuukin, and I believe that I can, Shino said emotionlessly. I'll slap down Muttboy, Sakura said. And I have Naruto. Sasuke finished. Alright, we go on command, that C rank will be ours. They look quite eager, Kurenai said. Do you want to start it, or shall I? Itachi shrugged and Kurenai looked at the 6 young teens. Begin. Sakura leapt forwards, then suddenly felt herself being grabbed by a dozen invisible hands. A quick glance sideways showed that Sasuke was likewise suspended in midair, even as Kiba and Akamaru dashed forwards, aiming at Shino, who was disgorging his Kikai as fast as he could. Fang over fang. Shino almost managed to avoid the twin twisters of destruction, but the glancing impact knocked him off balance for just a few seconds too long. "You're within range of my divination. 8 trigrams 32 palms. Hinata's palms blurred and Shino collapsed bonelessly onto the ground, even as Naruto strolled up to stand between the struggling Sakura and Sasuke, unsheathing a pair of kunai and holding them to their necks. "I think we win." Kurenai's jaw dropped and she reflexively unleashed a burst of chakra to dispel any genjutsu when the scene in front of her remained unchanged, with 2 of her students hovering at blade point in midair. She turned to Itachi. "How?" "Toten Kekai Genkai combined with Kage Bunshin," Itachi said with a slight smirk. "Damn," Kurenai cursed, "how in Kami's name are we supposed to be able to stand up to whatever that was?" "I have already planned out several possible counters," Itachi said, looking at where Sakura was kneeling over Shino, her hands glowing pale green on Shino's other side. "Hinata was doing the same thing. I see that I am not the only one who is encouraging their Kunoichi to learn medical ninjutsu." "That in Genjutsu," Kurenai said, "her chakra control is as close to perfect as it is possible to be, although her reserves still need more work." "Naruto has the opposite problem," Itachi commented. "He uses Kage Bunshin to help him manage his control. He has near Kage level chakra." Kurenai whistled as Itachi turned his attention back to where Shino was sitting up, still rather groggy. "Damn, that was awesome." Kiba laughed as they followed Itachi to their normal training ground. "I mean, you've got your own house, a girl who loves you and a Kekai Genkai that lets you kick people's asses without them even knowing that you're there. You have to be the luckiest person ever." "And I'm lucky as walking just next to me," Naruto replied, giving Hinata a one-armed hug. "If not for Hinata, I wouldn't be here now." Hinata blushed at the praise, but nodded in confirmation as they reached their destination. Itachi led them to the middle of the field, then sat down and motioned for them to follow suit. "Our mission is to escort a bridge builder back to the land of waves," Itachi said, frowning at the scroll. "It is classified as a C rank for the way there. We will be limited to civilian speed for the way back. We will be practicing branch leaping comments. If we are traveling at civilian speeds on the way there, we'll need to pack for several weeks, maybe even a month," Naruto offered, and Itachi nodded in approval. Hence Hinata blushed, earning a raised eyebrow. Naruto-kun, and I already have a tent." Itachi's eyebrow lifted further as he considered it. "I see you are betrothed, so I should have expected it." For a moment, an uncomfortable silence settled over the field, a silence broken by Kiba, who had completely failed to notice the emotional atmosphere. "I can get a one-man tent from my clan's warehouse," Kiba said with a grin. Itachi-sensei. "I keep a field kit prepared at all times," Itachi said. "A tent is part of it." "Medical supplies," Hinata added, stroking a scroll stored in an inside pocket, earning another nod of approval. "I have a basic first aid kit as well," Naruto added, and Kiba perked up. "I have a vet kit which doubles as a medical kit." Hinata blinked. "Kiba-san, would you mind if I sought lessons from Hana-san, so that if Akamaru gets hurt, I know how to help him?" "Sis would love to get a helper at the clinic," Kiba shrugged. "I know the basic stuff, but I tend to concentrate on the attacking stuff." "I will be happy to rearrange the training sessions to help you accommodate that," Itachi said, earning a look of gratitude from both Kiba and Hinata. "Bring your mission packs to the veterinary clinic tomorrow at 10, so that I can check them. Do not worry about rations yet, we shall collect them from the Akamichi commissary tomorrow. Unless you have spent all your money already, you should have enough for several weeks of rations." Kiba paused, then exchanged glances with Akamaru. "Sorry buddy, looks like we'll have to wait until after the mission to get that new basket for you." The bell above the door jangled and Hana looked up, as did the 3 large grey dogs lying in various corners of the office. "Hinata, Ruto," she smiled in greeting. "Itachi-kun and my bro are waiting out the back, just head through." "Thank you, Hana-sama," Naruto replied with a slight bow as he and Hinata moved to the indicated door. Opening it, Naruto briefly scanned the inside of the room before moving aside to let Hinata through. "You realize that Hinata could have used her Byakugan, it would have been less obvious," Itachi noted, and Hinata and Ruto glanced at each other. "Ah sorry, Itachi-sensei, I didn't." "It is alright, Hinata-chan," Itachi said, interrupting her apology. "I know about the tradition of not using the Byakugan in public within the walls of Konoha without a proper reason. Bear in mind, though, that the rules are different beyond the walls." "Hi, Itachi-sensei." "Excellent," Itachi said, "now that you are all here, move to a table and unpack. I want to see all of your weapons and supplies." The clink of weapons and rustling of scrolls briefly filled the room, then Itachi motioned for them to move to his table. As you can see, I have my camping equipment sealed in scrolls for ease of transport, spare clothing is in this one, camping rations in this one, I have several bars of emergency rations in this pouch for use while moving for weapons, I have a tanto, 30 kunai, 30 shuriken, and 3 rolls of ninja wire, I also have several packs of seal tags, explosive, gas, flashbang and a few extras and some scrolls that you do not need to learn about at this time now, let us see what Hinata has. Hinata moved to behind her table. My medical kit is in this scroll with the basics stored in this pouch for emergencies. Ko-san was kind enough to advise me, this scroll contains camping gear, well this one contains rations. I have several ration bars in this pouch as well, although I rely mainly on Juho. I have 10 kunai and 20 shuriken, as well as a roll of ninja wire finally, this scroll holds clothing. Excellent, Itachi said, picking up one of the kunai and examining it, you look after your weapons very well. Thank you, Itachi-sensei. Kiba nodded and strode across to his table. I have a standard Inyazuka camping pack scroll, a standard Inyazuka field medical kit, 2 scrolls of rations for myself and Akamaru 15 kunai, 20 shuriken and a roll of ninja wire. But Itachi said, picking up a camping scroll and reading the inscription A Type 3 camping scroll, an excellent choice for an escort mission. Yeah, sis told me what to pick and why, Kiba admitted and Itachi nodded in approval. Only an idiot turns down advice. I am glad that you are not an idiot. As Kiba grinned, Itachi turned his attention to the final member of the party. Naruto, why is your table almost empty? It isn't, Naruto said as his hand seemed to vanish for a moment, reappearing with a kunai. I use pouches woven from my hair, my Kekai Genkai means that the pouches are invisible, thus I can carry them while using my invisibility. Impressive, Itachi admitted, letting Naruto hand him one of the pouches so that he could examine it. What is your loadout? Well, I rely mainly on my totem blood limit, so I carry a dozen kunai, 2 dozen shuriken, and 2 rolls of ninja wire. The visible pouch contains my camping scroll, although Hinata carries the tent, as well as my rations and extra clothes. I also keep a few ration bars and similar on me. Yes, I can see the problems that your blood limit brings, Itachi mused, your loadout is lighter than the others, but with your Kage Bunshin abilities, I do not see that as an insurmountable problem. Naruto nodded as he reclaimed the pouches and started to reattach them to his uniform. Do you not have to remove your clothing to vanish? Naruto shook his head. Only the mask, gloves and coat, the rest is made from materials that can channel my chakra watch. Itachi's eyebrows shot up as Naruto shed the mask, gloves and coat before vanishing. Useful. Expensive, Naruto countered as his clothing reappeared and he donned the mask and gloves once more. This outfit was a gift, I'd need to take a B rank mission or higher to afford another. I shall keep that in mind, Itachi noted. You may all repack your loadouts, they are satisfactory. Kiba waved as the rest of his team vanished, Itachi-sensei towards the Uchiha compound and the lovebirds towards their cottage. So, you finally have a C rank, Hana said, coming up behind him and leaning on the doorframe. Itachi-kun did say that you were improving quite rapidly, he wouldn't have asked for a C rank if he didn't think you could handle it. Yeah, I'm awesome. Kiba boasted, then he sighed and crouched to stroke Akamaru, but Ruto's even more awesome, he uses invisible clones. Keep it quiet, bro, Hana warned, and Kiba looked at her in confusion. Those are powerful weapons that enemies won't expect, and the longer they fail to learn of them, the more successes your team will be able to claim before they wise up. It's why several of our clan techniques are banned from being used, unless you can ensure that there will be no witnesses or survivors to talk about it. Most clans have the same thing. Techniques that they hold onto tightly in order to provide a trump card when truly needed. Kiba nodded slowly, then he followed his sister back into the clinic. Sitting down, he scooped Akamaru up and placed him in his lap so that he could continue stroking him. Sis. Hana looked at him curiously. I heard that Ruto was going to form his own clan, isn't that rather hard to do? I don't know that much about how to found clans, yet you're better off talking to mom about that, Hana said with a slight shrug. Kiba nodded. Okay, thanks. Hasan. Then Yuzukatsume looked up from the ever-damned paperwork to see Kiba stood in the study doorway, eagerly seeing him as an excuse to put off the paperwork. She waved him in. Hey, pup, what you after? Information about clan founding, Kiba said, then he caught his mother's confused expression. Not for me, I heard that Ruto was going to become a clan leader at some point and I wanted to know about what it meant and if I could help him. Tsume leaned back in her chair, one hand dropping to rub the ears of Kuromaru, who was lounging on the floor. Ruto, I assume that you mean Ruto, the boy with the Toten Kekkei Genkai, the one that means no one can see or smell him. My teammate Kiba confirmed and Tsume nodded. A blood limit like that is almost a guarantee of being allowed to form a clan, he only needs 4 clans to vote in approval, assuming he has a fiancé. Another Kiba supplied and Tsume's eyebrows lifted slightly. Well, that gives him the Hyuga vote. Any other clans that you know of linked to him? The Yamanaka, Nara and Akamichi all seem to like him, Kiba said. We often train with Team 10, and Ino mentioned that the Hyuga attend the gatherings. That's 4 votes. Tsume nodded. When he gets old enough, he will become a clan head. I believe that I will vote for him as well. Having you on his team means that we in Yazuka have a chance of being clan allies with his clan. Why is that so important? Kiba asked curiously. I mean, he's only one person. But the Kekkei Genkai that makes him almost unbeatable, Tsume countered, with his children inheriting it and their children. It will only be a few generations until Konoha becomes the power in the elemental nations because of his clan, if he learns to move silently as well. He's already pretty quiet, Kiba offered. Then his clan will become the perfect assassins, completely unstoppable. Tsume finished. It's no wonder that the Hyuga sought to link him to their clan by marriage. If his invisibility stretches to the Byakugan, then they would be terrified of having him as an enemy. Hinata and Hanabi-chan are the only 2 Hyuga who can see him, Kiba said with a slight shrug. Itachi-sensei can't see him even using his Sharingan, but he can just about make out Rito's Kage Bunshin. Tsume whistled in amazement. Kiba, after you lot get back from your mission, you are going to give me a full debriefing on Rito's abilities, and then you are going to act as my messenger. There is no way that I am letting the Inyazuka miss making allies with a clan as powerful as his is going to be. Chapter 9. Good, you are all here with 10 minutes to spare, Itachi said approvingly. This is our client, Tazuna. We shall be escorting him to the land of waves, so that he can finish building his bridge. We can expect bandits' thoughts. Hinata raised a hand and Itachi nodded for her to speak. I can use my Byakugan to check the surrounding area every so often. I cannot have it permanently on. Because of the chakra cost. Itachi finished smoothly. You know your limits well. Put me at the front and I can sniff out threats, as Kanakameru here, Kiba piped up, earning another approving nod. I'll send out some of my clones occasionally out to sweep the area, as well as keeping a group behind us as we discussed, Naruto said, earning a nod. Excellent, Kiba. You and Akamaru will take the lead as you suggested. Hinata and Ruto, you will flank Tazuna and perform the tasks that you have suggested. Use the offset diamond formation. I will bring up the rear. The 3 genin nodded and took their places, glancing at Tazuna, whose hand kept twitching towards the flask on his belt before he glanced at Itachi and flinched slightly. Kiba, lead us to the guard shack. Kiba nodded and started to walk forwards towards the open gates. To the right of them was an open-fronted hut with 2 people sat behind the counter. One of them looked curiously at the party as Itachi walked over to them. Team 7 plus client departing for escort mission to the land of waves, Itachi said, proffering the mission scroll. One of the men behind the counter accepted it and unrolled it, examining it closely before nodding and handing it back. Tech confirmed. Good luck, Itachi-san. Thank you, Itachi said, then he turned to face the team. It is time to move out. Kiba nodded and moved forwards, followed by Hinata and Naruto, who made sure to keep Tazuna between them. Naruto, have you deployed any clones yet? Just 6 behind us, Naruto replied, causing Tazuna to glance back in perplexity. Even with my chakra reserves, I would prefer to wait until we are further from Konoha before sending out scouting clones. Agreed, Itachi said. It will take us 2 days to clear the regularly patrolled areas. Keep the Kawarimi clones ready, but do not worry about the scouting ones until then. Yes, sensei. As they walked, Naruto looked around him with interest. Hinata briefly activated her Byakugan to see what had caught his attention, but didn't see anything unusual, so she decided to simply ask. Is something wrong, Ruto-kun? Oh, sorry, Naruto responded. No, it's just that this is my first time actually outside Konoha. The trees look slightly different. They were grown by the first Hokage in a single jutsu, Itachi said from behind them. Senju Hiroshima changed the grass plains into this forest by means of his Kekkei Genkai, Mokuten, wood release, the ability to create and manipulate plants. Wow, Kiba said from ahead of them. That's amazing. The Senju and the Uchiha worked together to make Konoha, but when it came to choosing who the first Hokage should be, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hiroshima fought at what would become the Valley of the End. Madara summoned the greatest of the Biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, but the Kyuubi was sealed away by Hiroshima's wife, Senju Mido. Born Uzumaki Mido, she became the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and stood by her husband's side when he was granted the title of Hokage. You said that she was the first Jinchuriki, Kiba noted. There were others. Itachi said the second was Mido's niece, Uzumaki Kushina, the red-hot habanero, who traveled from Yazushi Ogakure to take on the burden before Mido finally passed away. She met, fell in love with, and married Namikaze Minato, the one who would become the Yondaime Hokage and who became known as the Yellow Flash. What happened to her? Hinata asked before she could stop herself. When a female Jinchuriki gives birth, their seal weakens for a time. The Kyuubi managed to escape and inflicted a mortal wound on her. Before trying to attack Konoha, the Yondaime and Kushina worked together, sacrificing themselves to seal the Kyuubi away once more into their son, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. I heard about him. Kiba realized he died in a freak accident, didn't he? Mom was very upset when she heard that he was dead. She'd been trying to get permission to adopt him since she was good friends with his mom. And when his lineage was revealed, many people had to take a long look at themselves. Itachi agreed. It convinced my father to abandon his plan to take control of Konoha and to instead try a different path. Is that why he and my father are now the Hokage's advisors after the Sandame's old teammates were asked to retire a few years ago? Hinata asked, earning a nod of approval. Indeed, although the explanation is more complex than that I shall explain later, if you wish, Itachi said. It also led to the public revelation that Madara was, at least recently, still alive, and maybe so even now. But he'd be ancient. Kiba protested. The Sharingan has several different levels to it, Kiba. Itachi said calmly. You have all seen the first 3 levels, the 1, 2 and 3 Tomo Sharingan, but there are 2 more levels. The next is the Mangekyo Sharingan, which is gained through sorrow. It imparts several powers which are almost impossible to counter, although the user's eyesight fades quite rapidly as a result, unless certain actions are taken. The final level is known as the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which has similar powers. But without the failing eyesight and with the conferring of immortality, if you find yourself facing an Uchiha with a Sharingan that is not of the first 3 levels, your best chance of survival is to run. My cousin Shisui has a Mangekyo Sharingan, although he prefers not to use it due to the price it exacts. Kiba breathed and Itachi nodded. I know of a defense against the Sharingan, one which also works against the Byakugan Naruto offered, and Itachi raised his eyebrows slightly. Then when we stop for the night, I will ask you to demonstrate. I promise that I will not pass the information on without your permission. Meh, I can't do it myself due to my invisible chakra, but the technique is pretty much just a simple chakra flare. Naruto shrugged, and Itachi's brows rose higher. Fascinating. Such a technique would be devastating if used correctly in combat against an unprepared Dojutsu using adversary. Yeah, most ninja with a Kekai Genkai tend to rely on them a bit too much, myself included, Naruto said, turning to look at Hinata, who nodded with a gentle smile of remembrance. Yes, Ruto-kun, using your idea to defeat my father in training was one of your better decisions. Ah, so that is why the Hyuga have begun to train to not rely on their Byakugan. Itachi realized had wondered about that. You know, Naruto mused, if I used my clones to carry Tazuna, we could move a lot faster. We will try it out tomorrow to see if it works, Itachi said after a long moment considering it. Just remember, the comfort and safety of our client is our highest priority, and you have not quite perfected branch leaping yet. Ah, good point, Sensei, Naruto admitted, while Hinata tried not to giggle. We will set up camp here, Itachi announced as he looked round the clearing with a stream along one side. Put up your tents, I will create a latrine. Ruto, we will need firewood. Hinata and Naruto instantly started to set up their tent, working together with the ease of familiarity, while Kiba pulled out his scroll and unsealed his own tent, then he paused. Shouldn't you be getting whoa, that's freaky. Azuna stared at the pieces of wood floating to the middle of the clearing, then he looked suspiciously at the flask that he had just drunk from. With an air of deliberation, he held the flask to one side and poured the contents onto the ground. Before walking over to the stream, kneeling down, he stuck his head into it, surfacing only to gasp for air. Why is he doing that? Itachi asked as he returned to the clearing. Kiba shrugged. Oh no, he poured his drink away too. Itachi blinked and walked over to their client. Tazuna-san, are you feeling alright? I knew that was a bad batch of sake, Tazuna moaned as he pulled himself to his feet. It was making me hallucinate, I gotta go sober from now on. Itachi opened his mouth, then thought better of what he was about to say. If you can sit by the fire, I will see to setting up your tent. Tazuna nodded in thanks and staggered past Itachi, who watched him go. Why do I suspect Ruto had something to do with this? He mused to himself. Itachi? Yes, Tazuna-san. Tazuna gave a significant glance at one of the tents, and Itachi followed his gaze. The tent in question was the one that Hinata and Naruto had gone to sleep in, although Naruto had deployed several clones around to provide sentries. What? Is Ruto a girl? Itachi stared at Tazuna in confusion. No, he is a boy. Why do you ask? Then Hinata. Is a girl. I do not see where you are going with this. A boy and a girl sharing the same tent. Is that normal? Since they are betrothed, I see no problem with it, Itachi supplied, and Tazuna stared at him. Be betrothed? Indeed, Itachi said as he pulled the final 2 fish off the fire, handing one to the confused older man. He took a bite before continuing his explanation. Ruto and Hinata have been betrothed since before they started the academy. When they entered the academy, Hinata moved into Ruto's house so that they could be together. Hinata and her younger sister are the only 2 who have seen Ruto without his coverings. Although Hinata has several hand-drawn pictures of him, she is a good artist. Azuna blinked several times, then shook his head. Ninjas, I'll never understand you people betrothing at, what, 10, 9, 8, 8. That's what the damn nobles do. The circumstances were rather unusual, Itachi said with a slight shrug, it is not something that normally happens. Tazuna nodded, then gave his empty sake flask a longing look before sighing. Well, I'm headed for my bedroll, we've got a lot of walking tomorrow. Itachi watched his client shamble off, then half turned to look at the smallest and couldn't sleep. Kiba half emerged, a slightly embarrassed look on his face, and Itachi moved round to sit closer to him. How are you feeling? Nervous, Kiba said with an embarrassed shrug, don't know how to put it. This is your first mission outside Konoha, as well as your first C rank, Itachi said understandingly, some nervousness is only to be expected, this is all new to you, after all is Akamaru well. He dropped right off. Kiba smiled, then he fought down a yawn. I think you should join him, Itachi said with a slight smile, go and hunt your dreams together, we are still in the patrol range, so we will not need to stand a full watch tonight. Thanks, sensei. Kiba yawned as he wriggled back into his tent. Itachi nodded and made a cage bunshin. Wake me if anything happens, he commanded, and the clone nodded as Itachi made his way towards his own bedroll. Itachi's eyes opened as the smell of breakfast drifted into his tent. Opening the flap, he looked out to see Hinata and Naruto working together over the small campfire. Naruto clad in his Hakami and Hapuri combo. Opposite them sat Tazuna, eyes wide and transfixed on the gap in the Hapuri, where Naruto's face would have been had he been visible, while Kiba sat to one side, brushing Akamaru's fur. All of the other tents had been packed and sealed. Itachi pulled himself out of his tent and, in fast, methodical fashion, collapsed and sealed it before turning round and accepting the bowl of food offered to him by Hinata. This smells very nice, Itachi said as he pulled a spoon out, and Hinata blushed and looked away. Thank you, it's a recipe that Ko-san gave to me and I never got to try out, it's supposed to be very useful on missions. Itachi took a taste of the stew and nodded. I recognize the recipe, protein, carbohydrates, vitamins in virtually the same proportions as a ration bar, but with a far better taste, an excellent meal, Hinata-sama. Hinata's blush intensified as she glanced over to where Akamaru was busy licking his bowl clean, while Kiba was using his puppy dog eyes as he held out his bowl for a second serving. We will be trying to cover more distance today, Itachi said after he finished the bowl and handed it to Hinata for a refill. Naruto, about what you suggested. Naruto nodded and pulled out a scroll that Itachi hadn't seen before. With a quick application of chakra, several lightweight open sedan chairs comprising 4 poles, a length of rope and a piece of fabric, appeared. Interesting, Itachi said, I shall run, so. Naruto resealed one of the chairs, leaving 3. One is for Tazuna, Itachi mused, then he nodded. Of course, who else would you trust enough to carry Hinata, also allowing her to use her Byakugan more? I'll run as well, Kiba said with a grin. I'm an Inyazuka, we love to run. Agreed, Itachi said as another chair vanished into the scroll. I don't want any special treatment, Hinata said, then she paused as Naruto leaned forwards to whisper in her ear, oh alright. Then we move out after everyone has finished their breakfast, Itachi said, handing his empty bowl over to be washed and stored. Kiba, a third bowl will only slow you down. But it's so tasty. Kiba moaned as Hinata sealed the remaining food into a scroll and stowed it. Oh. Kiba, Hinata said warningly, and Kiba looked away. Okay, so, when are we heading out? I got the need for speed. He's really invisible. Tazuna finally managed as Naruto started donning his mask, coat and gloves. Tazuna looked at the forest blurring past, then down at the 2 handles stretching out in front of the chair. Even though he knew that there was a quartet of clones carrying him, he couldn't quite shake the feeling that the chair was actually flying just above the ground. Itachi-sensei, I can see 2 ninja hiding in a jinjutsu of a puddle just over the next hill, Hinata said urgently, and Itachi nodded. I see, Ruto, fade out and run ahead, I want this paralysis tag slapped down just behind them, it will hold them long enough for us to get past them. Once we are past them, deploy a dozen clones to watch and intercept if they pursue us. Naruto nodded and quickly shed his coat, mask and gloves, passing them to Hinata, who cradled them in her lap. Accepting the tag, he accelerated off, fading into invisibility as he did so. That is freaky, Tazuna said in a shaking voice, and Itachi glanced at him in amusement. We are ninja, freakiness is normal to us. Naruto-kun has placed the tag, Hinata said. Just as they crested the hill, at the bottom of the gentle slope was a puddle, and Itachi briefly activated his Sharingan before they raced past the puddle. As they headed up the next slope, Hinata leaned slightly towards him. They've managed to break free of the tag. Naruto has them flanked with clones. But halt. The group came to a quick stop with Tazuna grabbing onto the sides of his chair to avoid being tipped out by the sudden deceleration. Both chairs were promptly placed on the ground, and Hinata took up position just in front of Tazuna, ready to defend him. "Those are Gozu and Maizu," Itachi said as the duo emerged from their illusory puddle and began running towards them, the spike chain between them glinting in the sunlight. "They are well known for their collaboration techniques, Ruto clones. I need one of you to relay an order by dispelling. When those two get to 30 paces, I want them dogpiled and flattened. Hinata. I want the one with 2 horns on his hit taken down as fast as possible. The other one is the brains of the pair." Hinata nodded even as a pop heralded the dispelling of a clone, then she quickly started whispering to a second clone. Itachi turned his attention to the approaching brothers as the second clone also dispelled itself, then the brothers suddenly found themselves slammed into the ground. Before they could even begin to try getting up, Hinata appeared between them and struck them both with Juho strikes, paralyzing them both. "Well done," Itachi said as he walked forwards, pulling a pair of red-bordered scrolls out of his pouch, unrolling one of them, he rolled Maizu onto it and sealed him into the scroll before turning to Gozu. "Now, why did you attack us?" Gozu tried to look away, but Itachi's Sharingan held his gaze. After a long moment, Gozu shuddered and fainted. "Interesting," Itachi mused as he sealed Gozu away. "It would seem that we may have to seek reinforcements, since this is not a C-rank mission." Izuna swallowed nervously as Itachi slowly rose and stared at him. "As I am certain you hoped for, we cannot abandon this mission without damaging Konoha's reputation. Conversely, should we continue without exacting a penalty, other clients will be tempted to try to lie to us in order to gain our services cheaper." Izuna started to sweat as Itachi continued to stare at him, then Itachi nodded. "The bridge you are building will generate a large profit for Wave. You will pay us for the C rank upon completion of the mission, and then Wave will pay for the true ranking of A rank by installments, as provided by a percentage of the profits, until the mission is paid off. Since you gained our services under false pretenses, this is not a negotiation, accept or refuse. If it is the latter, then we shall declare you to be in breach of contract, and Konoha shall refuse to provide aid in the future." Izuna began before he slumped. "Alright. I am glad that you decided to see reason," Itachi said as his hands flew through several seals before he slammed them onto the ground. A raven appeared in a burst of smoke, and Itachi held up the 2 scrolls which he had tied together while talking. "Take these 2 to the Hokage and tell him that the mission was misranked. Reinforcements would be welcomed, since I believe that we will be facing a minimum of 1 A rank Nukenin plus allies." The raven nodded and took the proffered string in its beak. Before taking wing as it flew away, Itachi turned back to Izuna. "Before we continue on our way, I believe it would be best if you told me everything you know about who and what we may be facing. What if Naruto Stealth Bloodline Chunin exams end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.